vision. Clippers are creative, inquisitive, and engaged learners who participate in their community as socially responsible citizens. Clippers effectively communicate and solve problems that impact the world around them.
Great, thank you, Terry. And Bill Dorfner, the students.
This first one is it's Drea from Falmouth High School in 12th grade. What is going well in your school and what do you like most in your school? What is going well in school is that teachers are a lot more understanding, especially with the past 2 years. I like most how flexible some teachers are. Thank you. Is from Maya from East Falmouth Elementary School in grade 4. What would make your school life better? The class pet would make my school life better.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would. Great, thank you for both
Thank
of those. Thank you both for reading them. Public comment. Members of the public are welcome to speak about items that are not on the agenda. Comments should be limited to 2 minutes in length. Due to the open meeting law, there will be no debate or action taken on public comment items. For items on the agenda, the chair may accept comments from the public following the school committee's discussion of an item. Additional comments and feedback can also be submitted by email to schoolcommittee@falmouth.k12.ma.us. And do we have any public comment either in person or remotely? Okay. Seeing none, first, I want to embarrass Miss Keith a little bit and say happy birthday. That is my public comment for the evening. We'll definitely get back to that one. The first item on our agenda is the student advisory report, but our student was busy with school.
Yeah, studying for the finals, which is exactly what we want our students to do. So unfortunately, she was unable to be here or create a video for us.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you for that and good luck on the finals. Or good luck on the finals that already happened.
Yeah.
First up, presentation of VIPs. Hi, how are you?
I brought friends. Not sorry, I brought friends, but I didn't. Well, thank you for having us. It's nice to be back in this room and back to presenting to school committee in person. It's a good sign. I would like to start out by saying thank you. That's helpful. I'd like to start out by thanking Drade Geisiger. As all of you know, she's the secretary for VIPs and so much more. So we just wrapped up another great year and we have a blast together. And I also brought some board members tonight because they wanted to share their perspective with you as well. So I'm going to keep my comments super brief because I know it's a packed agenda. But joining me tonight is Todd Bidwell, Susan Roman, and Kevin Clower. And I think there's some folks in the back as well, or maybe
There's nothing to stop.
All right, Siri. Well, let's roll in. I guess I wanted to say that, you know, since COVID, we've really taken stock of what really matters the most. So I would say our numbers of volunteers aren't maybe as impressive as they used to be, and maybe the same number of hours. But I think what we've learned from that is that the relationships that have been in place for students throughout the pandemic, even when students were remote, the mentors who found ways of staying in touch with their students, the tutors who decided they learned how to do Zoom and tutor algebra on Zoom, which just baffled me, and I think it was amazing. We even launched a new program, academic coaching, during COVID, which ended up being such a great idea and concept that we kept it, and it's now one of our core programs. So you have your presentation in front of you. I'm probably not going to stick to it as a big script. I just picked a few items that I thought, you know, would resonate tonight. But the main thing I want to talk about is that we have pretty much categorized our programming in the last several years into 4 core focus areas, and those are in front of you. I'll just quick, I won't read them all, but just the 4 areas are mentoring, and that includes several of our different programs that serve different ages and you know, themes basically for mentoring. Academic enrichment, so that's the sort of tried and true first 8 tutors of VIPS were at Falmouth High School back in 1983 when we started. Tutoring remains a super important program today. Just at Falmouth High School, we had 46 tutors in place this year. And those are the volunteer tutors, that's in addition to the paid tutors. Financial literacy, a really important area for us. In fact, the kids from the high school keep telling us, this is an important life skill and we need to have more of these presentations. So that sounds like an order and I think we'll go for it. And then wellness, of course, which has changed in a lot of ways from being strictly sort of movement-based programs to now focusing on mental health and wellness. So definitely an important area for us. So I think at this point, I might turn it over to Todd. I guess the one other thing I'll say is that quote from Tom Ford, I think really resonated this year for us, that it's the connections that really matter to students. And I won't read you all the quotes because like I said, you have it in front of you. We're surveying all of our volunteers right now. We do this every year at the end of the year. We survey the kids, we survey the mentors and the academic coaches and tutors just to get input and help tweak our programs for the future school year. And so there's just a few quotes in there from the surveys that are coming in now. I won't read them, but you can see one thing that for academic coaches, how many of them mention the word relationships. And the relationship that they've established with the students. And again, to me, that's what the important thing about the VIPS program is in the schools and the community and being the facilitator for establishing those relationships that people might not ever get to have with a student in school. So I will turn it over to you, Todd.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Todd Bidwell. I've had the true honor of serving as president of Falmouth VIPS for the past 2 years. We will be turning the reins over to Carrie Shanahan as our incoming president for the next year. As all of you are aware, VIP's presence can be seen in nearly every facet of each school's day-to-day experience for our students. From mentoring, academic coaching, tutoring, to junior achievement, cross-age science teaching and wellness programming, Falmouth VIPS relies on the strength of our relationships with volunteers, students, staff, and community partners to meet the needs of the district. At the core of these relationships, our executive director, Tracy Crago, and our secretary, Drade Geishiger, who we are incredibly proud of, and who continue to oversee and nurture the hundreds of volunteers, students, and members of the Falmouth community. We are also extremely fortunate to have a board of directors who bring an extensive and diverse set of skills and life experiences to this, several of whom have children who are currently enrolled or who have graduated from Falmouth Public Schools. Our current board consists of financial advisors, attorneys, teachers, clinical social worker, radio television producer, a farmer, and local business leaders. What we all share in common as a board is a passion and dedication in helping our students succeed and to provide extra attention and encouragement to those students with higher needs. I also want to mention how grateful we are to Dr. Dorr and Ms. Kanelopoulos for meeting with us during the school year, and we truly look forward to our continued collaboration with the district.
Thank you.
Thank you. I now introduce Susan Roman, our Vice President.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. I won't add much to what Tracy and Todd have already said, except to say that, you know, as a board, as a 501c3, we as the board are responsible for raising funds, and we raise over 1/2 of our annual budget. And what we have talked about as a board is wanting to make sure that the community really understands that we are a nonprofit organization, and as such, we rely on the support of the community. And I say that because I think many of us, I myself, I have 2 graduates of Falmouth High School and 2 who are still in the high school. And I know I was in the schools for years, and I saw the VIPS presence all around, you know, doing wonderful things, but I didn't even fully understand that it was a nonprofit organization. And so because we rely so much on community support, to the extent that any of us in this room are talking to people or sending out written communication or anything, if we could just remind the community that we are a nonprofit and we rely on the support of the community, that would be wonderful. Just so that it becomes a little more, you know, to increase the understanding of our wonderful relationship with the district. It's really hard.
And Kevin Clower?
I guess it's my turn. I've met many of you, those I haven't met, my name is Kevin Clower. I've been on the board the last 2 years. I've been working on the strategy and governance committee. I wanted to do events, but they said no. They wanted attorneys to review documents. We were pigeonholed. We've worked really hard over the past few years to update the bylaws, work on succession planning, and just really instituting best practices for nonprofits. On a personal note, I mean, I've been here in town for 10 years, and it's only in the last few years that I've really gained a real understanding of what VIPS does in the community. I have 4 children in the schools. My oldest finished at Mullen Hall today. I'm not entirely okay. I have 6 years left there with Rose, so I'm hoping by the end I get a wing named after them. But I'm really proud to be a member of this board. I've been on a few boards, all for different reasons, but this is really important to me. I think VIPS introduces a really important service to the schools and to the town and really fosters strong community ties, while also, I think, picking up and helping kids who might not always have the same opportunities as other kids. So we're really appreciative of the support the school committee has given us, of the support the community has given us, and we think that, you know, we're positioned right now for, Tracy mentioned briefly that 1983 was our first year, so this is our 40th year, and I think we're positioned for a much longer run ahead of us.
Put a big thanks to Andrea Referrals, who has served so well on our VIPS board of directors, and we can't thank you enough for doing that. So we're gonna miss you, but you know, you get 1 year off, so. But thank you so much. Sure. Yes, and it's true, get ready for next year, because we think we're gonna have a lot of really fun events planned, and some flashbacks to 40 years ago. I wasn't here at that time, but we have photos of people who were. And we're also going to be asking members of the community if they were involved 40 years ago or had a student in the schools 40 years ago and they want to share a story with us, that we would love that. We're going to be collecting those. Hopefully get some great stories to share with the community come fall. So thank you very much. Yes.
Could I just make a comment? We know about the VIPS family because they're on us, but could you tell us how many people from around the country, not just the Cape, contact you? Because you're such a good role model for a volunteer program.
Yeah, so it is fairly unique. We did learn there was a program kind of like ours in Washington State. We do get most of the contacts we get are from Massachusetts, where we go out to speak to other districts. We haven't done that much for the last 2 years, but we've been getting a lot of emails from other communities. Just last month, folks up in Milton started a college mentoring program based on ours. We're going to be working with Leah's group again over on the Vineyard. They're launching a college mentoring program. We've worked with them in the past on mentoring programs. Our focus working with Leah is also going to be for some of the students who whose immigration status is uncertain, and we want to help them navigate the college process and find ways for them to go.
So you're becoming worldly now.
Yeah, I guess we'll do.
Any other questions or comments? Margaret?
Do you members belong to AmeriCorps?
Yes, so
Okay.
our fellow just completed her year of service last Thursday. And we did get awarded a AmeriCorps fellow for next year. So we're still looking. It's a tough sell, and we talked to Lori about this. It's, you know, because it's service, the stipend went up to a whopping 20,000. But if you don't have a place to live that's close by, it's really, really difficult.
But your members can get transportation money, and many members get the
Correct.
money back to you.
Yes, correct. Thank you.
Any other questions? Andrea?
Of course you have a
If I didn't have a question. So it is such a unique relationship between a district and a nonprofit. And I guess I was wondering, what area of your 4 core areas do you see the most potential for growth in the short term? And what can the district do to support that? What committee needs to do that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think the beauty is that we do so much partnering within the district already for each of the 4 areas. So mentoring, I feel like we're in a really good place. I think the financial literacy piece is really ripe for more work with the district. I think a lot of what the VIPS program does is put in things that can't fit into the curriculum. So we like to do more of that and have a continuum so that when students are at elementary school and learning how to do the school banking and junior achievement, rolling that right up so that by the time they get to the high school and attend the money talks, those concepts are familiar to them. The goal is whether a student is leaving the high school to go into a career or into college or travel, they'll have a basic understanding of what it is to have savings and credit and those really important things that some people haven't had and now find themselves in a little trouble. So that's, I think financial literacy is probably a big one. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much for
All
joining
right,
us
thank
today.
you.
We appreciate it. Next on our agenda is discussion on school safety. Lori.
Yes, thank you. Chief Dunn, will you come up to the table and join us? We're going to have a little bit of discussion about where we've been, where we're going. So that I'll start out with a little list of things that everyone and certainly the chief and Patrick being our director of the safety for the district, in addition to all those other hats, certainly join in as well. And then hopefully we have time to answer any questions and be able to answer those. So a few years ago, the chief and his team and the district adopted the ALICE training, which is the premier safety training that's available. We, in addition to training with the police department, we had 2 staff members in each building, 14 staff members that took the ALICE trainer to be trained, ALICE training to be trainers. We are continuing that this year. So 2 more from each building will be going for the training this summer. So we'll have 4 trainers, and we will continue the actual trainings with the police department, but it's nice to have people that have that higher knowledge within the buildings that can answer questions, do refreshers, and that type. It's a supportive role that will happen around the ALICE. We have the chief has increased the number of police presence in our schools, and we're going to get back to having and I'll let you speak to that. The offices where the chiefs can speak a little bit about that. No.
On the as far as the remote, if you remember, several years ago, we put computers in the East Falmouth School, the North Falmouth School, and here in the admin building. So they were like satellite offices for our offices. It did 2 things. It helped the community, helped the officers so they weren't racing across town from doing reports when they were at the police station, but it also put the officers in the school at random times. And we felt that was a good thing to do. And because of COVID, we pulled all the computers out, but we are going to be putting the computers back. Dr. Doris, instead of, I know the office that we were using here has been taken up, so we're going to use the T-ticket, and we may end up putting one over to Morse Pond. So we'll have 4 schools that will have satellite offices for our officers to go in and do reports. And they don't just do them during the day. We have officers there during their midnight. So all times of days and nights, because we have access to the buildings. And it really does a couple of things. It saves our officers again from coming all the way from East Falmouth to the center of town. It only gets sent back out to East Falmouth. So, but it also saves the community some money too. So fuel runs back and forth. So, and it's a great partner with the school. The officers enjoy going in. I think the kids and the staff enjoy seeing the officers from time to time. So look forward to bringing that program back.
So in addition to that, Patrick has increased the number of cameras in all of our buildings over the last few years. We're doing another assessment now. The building principals are doing, walking through the building, seeing if we need additional cameras. And then Patrick's gonna have them installed this summer. So we're continuing to increase that security measure. We do have a district-wide health and safety team that we are will continue to review the district needs. The Falmouth Police Department has presence, the fire department has presence at the meeting, and then each school's represented. And then we have continued that and each school level team. So every school has a safety team as well that reviews the school needs, and then they do come to the district and we review those. So Chief Dunn and myself and a few other administrators have continued to just review what the best practices are. And I don't know if you want to speak to, where we stand in Falmouth.
I do want to, assure everybody here, and especially in the school committee, we are light years ahead of many other districts. We really are. And some of that came to light with the incident up in North Falmouth, where we had the reunification. So many communities aren't even doing that. Excuse me. And we are following the best practices that are put out by Mass Chiefs, as well as the International Chiefs Association, as well as the SRO programs and things like that. So we really are putting the best foot forward. And it's been a great partnership with the school. And we had that conversation the other day. We weren't always that team effort, and it's changed over the years. And we in the police department, as the police chief, and I was talking to the doctor, it works well. We will continue doing that.
And so the new piece that we're putting in place, and Dr. Santa just posted today, for a coordinator, a safety coordinator for the district, and 7 safety and security monitors for the building. So each building will have their own monitor. The coordinator will be a trained professional. I'm going to let Chief talk about that a little bit and how this will work.
Yeah, we've had the conversation and really hope to have a retired law enforcement official, take that position, who has some training and experience in dealing with safety. So that's our goal, and to be able to have the monitors in the different schools. I mean, I'd love to put a police officer in every school, but right now the department's hurting, and this community has so many schools, with 7 schools, where other communities have 2 or 3 schools and they can afford to do that. We can't. But by having the monitors in there, that's what their job will be, is to go around, check doors, cameras, greet people and all that, so that the rest of the school staff can do what they're there for, to teach and educate. So I think it's going to be a great program. Just take it to that next level.
So thank you, and I do appreciate the collaboration. I don't know if anyone else wants to add anything or any questions.
The monitors, they're going to be a separate individual, not a teacher, and they're going to be monitoring the doors.
They'll go around, check doors. If doors pried open, they'll lock it. They can assist with the the front office when there's somebody at the door. All the schools have cameras. If somebody buzzes in, if they're not familiar with who the person is, you don't let them in. That person go out, say, "Can I see your ID? Why are you here?" Politely and all that, and just be eyes and ears so that the rest of the staff can do what they have to do, teach.
But those persons like security, but not security. I'm just trying to figure out which extent that they have.
Well, we're still developing the program. There are programs out there, and it will be whatever the safety team district wants. But yeah, they're not going to be armed. They'll have a radio. And but they'll be trained in security and to be able to look at different things and bring back ideas like we just talked about. Maybe we need more cameras. Maybe we get blind spots here.
Can I ask another question, if I may? The cameras, do those link back to the station?
They do.
They do, okay.
They do, and they're only accessed in case of an emergency.
Yeah, okay. But it's a
But
closed-
we have access to them.
I'm going to invite the chief into the interviews for the school safety and security monitors. And then there'll be the coordinator, hopefully a retired police officer that will obviously be with them, move through the, the different buildings and walk with them. I think, there'll be an initial training, but there'll be ongoing support, coaching and training as well.
Melissa?
I have, hi, thank you. I have a couple of questions. So with the safety coordinator, is that going to be a district position? Okay, and then, but the chief will have, you said will sit on the interviews and, okay, and the same with the 7 safety monitors. All right, and then, and I don't know if this is the time to mention this or if this is not the time, and if it's not, that I'm happy to send an email thinking forward. I work in an establishment where we have vendors come in quite often, and we don't have the luxury of buzzing people in. It's an open door situation, and vendors go to a little kiosk-ish area and they have to scan their driver's license or their state ID, and then they have a sticker on them so that it says who they are, why they're here, if they're here from a drug rep or if they're here from instruments, what have you. And that way we all know, because at my place of employment, we all wear the lanyards or the clip with your ID on it and everybody knows who you are. Is that an option? Is that on the table? Is everything kind of on the table as far as what we're doing because wonderful that we're gonna have a coordinator that oversees the 7 monitors, but we've taught our children of the district that, the adults that are supposed to be in the building, whether they're at the elementary level and they have a nice yellow sticker that says volunteer for the day, or they're older and they have, or if they're staff members and they have the lanyard and they have, kids are smart and, you're right, we are light years ahead, and kids in Falmouth, and I'm sure other communities as well, are good about saying, you know what, Mama, there was somebody in our building today and I didn't know who it was. And I asked, my teacher and she told me, and, but I didn't know because they didn't have their sticker on. So I'm just thinking like, that's great that like we on the adult level are gonna have that, but what are we gonna do to ensure to our children that we're keeping them safe and that this is a person that's okay to be in our building?
I mean, everything's on the table, as far as, what we do. I mean, similar, we just talked about in the police department. If we have a visitor that comes in, or maintenance just for the AC system, we have language that we
Right.
get people, so got people walking on the PD and you get an officer coming up the hall, who are you? So
Right.
they have the language. So, I mean, that's a similar program, or there are, systems out there that can be purchased. So, yeah, I'm sure everything's on the table. We're not gonna say no to anything.
And another question, where can parents and community members send their, because I'm sure there are some great ideas out in the community, where can they send their thoughts, concerns? Hey, I'm interested in this job. Hey, I'm, this is what we did in my previous community. Where is a good place that they can communicate that?
So they can always email me. I accept all emails. Mr. Murphy, sorry. I'm just jumping in. Okay. And the new director of business. And then we have our admin at Falmouth. Is it just administration? Is it admin? Our general info.
Administration at Falmouth.
Yes, so that's the general one. If they want to send that, then there's several people that, Sharon often triage the questions to the right people.
It's been an ugly recent topic, and I just want our community to know that we are doing everything that we can, and we are open to their concerns and ideas.
So I would hope everyone shares that the job postings are up. They can contact Dr. Santa and, apply or have help to apply or whatever.
Great.
So Lori, I have a question about the ALICE training. I know that there's a lot in that. How often are staff members practicing those skills?
So not as much during the last 2 years, I'll just be honest with you, with COVID. We just finished up a round of training with staff this spring, and the district-wide safety team asked if they could have a training just for themselves prior to school starting, and then we're gonna have our first one with students. In the last 2 years, we have not practiced with students, the ALICE training. What we've been telling the students is to please follow the directions of your teachers, because they've been continuing to have the training. So last year we did a virtual training, and then they had a live in-person training. The previous year, I believe, the same, and then the year before that, they had a couple drills that were live. So the students will be engaged in the training come September.
Andrea.
To start with, Melissa, your suggestion about the name badges. I wish Tracy Prego was still here, because I know that a couple years ago, maybe there's some people here that remember it happening. They trialed some of those, I think at Morse Pond and maybe another school, because it was a good way to keep track of volunteers as well, collect hours. There was like a lot of benefits to doing it. And it would be printed out with their picture on it and
That's
it
what
would
we
say
have, yeah.
volunteer. Yeah, so I know it was trialed and I don't know whatever became of that, but
Sure.
it'd be something worth looking into. And then Lori, so for the positions, the coordinator and the safety monitors, so are those new positions then?
So we've had a stipend position for the safety and security. It was kind of an add-on. We're adding hours. It will be a part-time position. It will not be, we're adding hours to what it was before.
So there's not a new job description or
It's the
anything that
same,
we would
it's the same, that,
review?
yeah, it's the same that we've had. The role is the same. I think it's expanded, obviously, because of having the monitors and overseeing. And then having the experience of someone in safety and security, I think is the change that, but we have had the role.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
been two stipend position, Bob Griffin and Greg Kennedy have filled those roles, and it's really helped us get, as the chief says, beyond where other districts have been. So we really do thank them for the service, but sort of adding another layer of experience to that is really the direction we're going. So we just took all the stuff they were doing and put it together. And then on the assistance role, we're kind of expanding what is being done at the high school already. We have staff assistants who do a wonderful job, paying attention to who's in the hallway and coming into the building. So that it's just sort of an expansion of what we're doing already.
Always get to Leah first, and then I will come back down the road. Leah.
Hi. So I actually, my question was Andrea's question around whether these were new positions, and just kind of understanding like what logistically we needed to do around this if they were new positions. It sounds like they're kind of a little bit new positions because they were stipend positions and now they're going to be salaried positions. Is that correct?
Well, there was like, I don't know, Patrick, if you want to.
It's going from stipend roles to part-time roles.
To part-time roles, okay. And then my other part of the question is just thinking budget-wise, that where the funding for these positions are coming from, and just ensuring that we are all set with that.
Yeah, so we can, the stipended roles are already baked into the local budget. The staff assistant roles or monitor roles have been in the ESSER funding and will continue to be in that. So there would be a little bit of an expansion on the part-time security facilitator, is that what we'll call it? Coordinator role, so that can be taken on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Terry.
I wanted to say Melissa's comments about the students made me think of this, and I just wanted to say thank you to Chief Dunn. They are ahead of things because you were there the next day after the North Falmouth incident and gave goodie bags
Sure.
and things to the kids to help alleviate them. That was I mean, it made me cry. That was just a wonderful gesture. So we're working with as about as good a team as we can. I'll tell you. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I wanted the students to know, especially that age, I wanted them to know that they did a phenomenal job of listening to the teachers and doing what they were asked to do. So, my pleasure. It was good, good medicine for us.
Couple of questions. I was looking at the postings on these positions, and I do see that the coordinator is shown as ESSER funds. I'm curious, the coordinator is shown as part-time, but the safety monitors are full-time. So who would the safety monitors kind of report to?
Coordinator.
The coordinator, and then obviously they're in the building, so the building principals
I was wondering, since the coordinators part-time, they wouldn't be there.
all the time, but everyone in a school building is ultimately reports to the principal.
Okay. And I would just like to comment and thank Chief Dunn for being here and also for your time yesterday as well. I know that every town, if they could, would absolutely love to put, an officer in every single school. And unfortunately, the bodies are not there. People just are not there. Officers, departments everywhere are short. But I want to thank you for the efforts that you're putting in and for your officers and all the work they're doing.
Thank you.
Keep it safe. Thank you.
Bye.
I just have a couple of questions. Thank you, Chief Dunn, for coming. I know you've been short-staffed for years now, and are you 56 is what your number is, 58?
Right now, we're 42.
42, so you're 14 people short of what,
We should be at 65.
so you're way more than I thought, okay. And I forgot this the first time around, but we've gotten emails and people have stopped me, and the likelihood of having an SRO in every building is not available now.
Not available now.
Okay. And then I think another question would be, this is not for this board, but just in general, to entice our guys and men and women, law enforcement to stay here, come here, we can help with that, would be fantastic.
It's not a popular career right now. So
Yeah,
that's
so I
it.
figured.
And it's across the country. It's not just Falmouth. It's
Yeah.
not just the key, but we're working on it. All right, so.
I just want everyone to know the
No,
reason why.
Right, that is the reason. And my goal is, and we do have some graduates coming out of the academy July 15th, but they won't be fully trained for another 15 weeks because we do FTO programs. And I had the conversation with the doctor and stuff, is my goal is eventually to get a second SRO back in the school, which we did have back around, I think before the economy tanked in 2009, 2010, we had to. And the goal would be to put another one in the Morse Pond and Lawrence School, so they would deal with both schools. That would be my long-term goal right now.
And then my last question, I'll stop talking, but I know you're short-staffed, I know people are working, overtime, all this stuff. Is there any way that, and they do it now, because I see Josh there all the time, I saw Jimmy the other day at North Falmouth, is there any way that the patrol officers can just kind of loop around the schools?
They're in the schools every day,
All right, perfect, thank you.
all the schools.
All right, awesome.
It's mandatory,
Mandatory to go in?
mandatory.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
I just have one more quick question per chief. I know back a long time ago that in the summertime, Falmouth Police Department had auxiliary police officers, whether they were retired military or I don't want to say they were college kids, but I think perhaps help me on this. Were they
Yeah,
were they
I was in college when I started. Yeah, so
teachers maybe that did it
Teachers,
on the side as well?
with police reform, we've done away with reserve officers.
Okay,
Because under police reform, they have to go to a full-time academy. Reserve officers went to a part-time academy, with about half the training that a police officer had, but enough to keep them out of trouble.
right.
But under the police reform, there's no more reserve officers. They are either full-time or they're full-time, that's it.
Okay.
So,
Thank
and if you're fully trained, you're not taking a part-time job, you're getting a full-time job somewhere. So that's,
Sure.
so under police reform, that kind of went away. In fact, this summer, you won't see any, we used to hire 7 police officers, reserve officers for the beaches and all that. What you're gonna see this year is community service representatives. They are civilians. They will be wearing the ANSI, the American Civil Liberties Union uniform. And they will be working in the beaches. And they will be yellow shirts, shorts, and they'll be directing traffic and giving tickets.
Good luck.
We've already experienced it.
Any other questions or comments? Oh,
Hi, how are you?
yeah, it's great. How are you?
Good. What about thinking about maybe retired military or other ways that we could get somebody in the schools to protect our children? Has there been any thoughts other than police officers, maybe retired, military veterans, retired security guards?
They could
other ways
apply,
that-
they could apply for one of those monitor positions.
I mean, I just think that there's a way that we can do this. To date, from January to June, we've already had 27 shootings across the country. I think this needs to be an immediate concern.
Thank you. And for public record, may I have your name? I forgot to ask. you.
Kelly, Hannah.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? As always, oh, do you want, okay, sure.
Just to clarify, the 7 monitors, are they 7 additional people in the building, or are they stipends to people that are already in the building that we're asking them to do one more thing?
No, there's 7 individuals.
Additional,
Yeah, 7 full-time.
and full-time, and that is their sole
Sole job.
job.
Sole job.
Thank you. That was all, thank you.
As always, thank you so much for taking the time to be
Thank
here.
you, Chief.
We appreciate it.
Thank you for allowing me that time.
Yeah.
And anybody ever has any questions, my email, my phone, I always answer, so please don't hesitate to call.
Thank you so much. We're actually gonna close this, so maybe if you wanna,
I'll
take it up in the hall, that'd be great. Yeah, we're gonna move on from the, but he's available.
Yeah.
Next is the presentation of school success plans.
Yes, and so, thank you very much. And we have all of our principals here. We have Mr. Tim Adams, Ms. Sandy Casanellis, Mr. Tom Bushy, Mr. Tom McMahon, Ms. Rose Moran, Mr. Paul Goodhine, and Dr. Vincent, and Dr. Tyler will kick us off, and I'm gonna go down here and sit as part of the presentation as well.
Okay.
See if we've got our timing down the slides and then if we get the delay down. Thank you very much. We'd like to share with you progress around our 3 overarching goals that are district goals as well as school-wide goals. So as we go into this evening's work, our first goal that we're going to speak to this evening is equity through cultural proficiency. And as we're thinking about our work and we come back to the rationale, and this is a rationale that we shared with you previously, we come back to our equity vision, which is really centered on the relationships that we build with students, how we come to understand students and meet them where they're at. So we focus on learning who our students are. If we understand them, respect them, and like them, and they can see themselves being successful, they will learn. So building off of our rationale, here again is our goal statement as we've shared with you. I'm really trying to move through these so we can spend some time talking about the progress reporting and things we've done over the course of the year. So through specific and scaffolded professional learning, we have fostered common district-wide language and set expectations for equity that are rooted in cultural proficiency, again, seeking to positively impact student growth and success for all of our learners. The foci on which we've been centered relationships and interactions, developing our shared values, really looking at our school culture and making sure that we're providing a welcoming atmosphere for all who interact with us in our learning environments. Making sure that our pedagogy, our approaches to teaching and learning are relevant and supportive of students, especially as they've been affected and changed for the past couple of years. And that our curriculum matches and our students can find themselves in our curriculum and in the examples within that, and building off shared practices and conversation we've had around policy. And within this, the pictures that are here are from our Indigenous Peoples celebration. You can see in the backdrop. This is at Mullen Hall, and this is in partnership with the Mashpee Wampanoag Tribe. And so as we've looked at year 2, we specifically wanted to drill into our work to scale the implementation in year 1, focusing again on relationships, making systemic changes that affect our hiring and mentoring strategies, part of which is tied to another presentation this evening. Cultivating the skills to effectively interact with our students, again, understanding how they have been affected and influenced, especially over the past couple of years, but wrapping our arms around them to make sure we have every sport they need to be successful. And then with that knowledge, skills, and attitudes, we create increased fluency and independence, excuse me. And then as we go forward, we want to continue to collect informal feedback and formal feedback so we can set our expectations for moving into next year. And just recently revealed, going into the Juneteenth celebration and Arts Alive weekend, the student and resident artist collaboration, the Clippers for Racial and Social Justice. Here is the mural that goes along with the land acknowledgement that you drafted, and steeped in symbolism, and it was incredibly powerful to hear the presentation at the unveiling and walk through the symbolism. So I'm sure we can revisit this on another occasion, but right now I'd like to get to that progress reporting, and I'd like to introduce Mr. Adams.
Thank you, Dr. Bellier. These are some highlights for this goal that we've accomplished this year. The expansion of our library collections across the district, and that was in partnership with 8 Cousins, so happy to be partnered with a local business. We have the launch of course number 2 in our Cultural Proficiency series. There's been a focus for our instructional leadership team on multilingual learners this year. There's been open sharing of resources and staff playlists and communications out to families. There's been attention to professional development on restorative practices, and we've begun the use of circles. We've modeled that for staff, modeled for students, and even modeled for families. We've created an in-district book study facilitated by 2 of our principals. We hosted our first multicultural fair in collaboration with the Coalition for Children. We revised our student referral system. There's been the collapse of the CP1 and CP2 credit designations at high school. There's been the dropout prevention through the Mass Grad Grant. There's the Falmouth High School After School Academy. There's also been the development of the food justice pathway, progress with professional development and application of social emotional learning. We've done benchmark screenings with the DESA screening tool and response to data. The Racial and Social Justice Mural Project is underway. There's the hosting of a World of Stories working event at Lawrence School and Arts Alive. There's been the implementation of charting the course to a graduate, hashtag I am a Clipper, and the expansion of our English language development department. With ongoing professional development and learning with Dr. Siana Marusi, Dr. Curtis Bates, and Dr. Khalees Warner. And with the staff and family listening sessions and engagement with the superintendent student advisor. Turn this now over to Mrs. Jackson-Bells for a highlight from the ticket.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. So, hello and good evening. I was going to highlight the story walks that we do at the T-Ticket School. So if you're not familiar with a story walk, it's essentially taking a book, separating the pages, and then arranging them so that the consumer can walk along and read page by page. And so we began doing this back when COVID started. We had students distanced in the hallways, and there was long waiting time. So we took it as an educational opportunity. And so the story walks have continued to be a means of integrating our efforts to improve our cultural proficiency, not only within our school, but also within the community. So during the school year, we continue to hang up story walks in the hallways to expose students and staff to books that are new, that may offer opportunities for discussion once students return to the classroom. So a few of the titles that we've included this year, we had Dario and the Whale by Cheryl Lawton, and this was a book about a child from Brazil who moved to Cape Cod and was struggling. We had A Little Bit Different by Claire Alexander, and that was a story exploring acceptance and joy in being different. There was a story written in English and Cherokee by Tracy Sorrell titled We Are Grateful. And then we also had Let's Celebrate Special Days Around the World by Kate DePalma. So as I mentioned before, we are also doing the story walks in the community and specifically in the T-Ticket Park. So for example, to celebrate Juneteenth, we put up Amanda Gorman's new book, Change Sings. So in addition to that, our fourth graders read the book and discussed the meaning of the poem in their class. And then each student designed a slide to accompany a page of the book. The slides were put together for a class slideshow, and then the QR code for the slideshow was added to the end of the story walk. I don't know if anybody got a chance to take a look at that, but it was pretty cool. So the story walks have been a great way for us to continue our efforts to build student knowledge, skills, and attitudes. So next I'm going to introduce Mr. Bushy from the Lawrence School. He's going to speak a little further about the Juneteenth celebration.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk to you all. We had a great day at the Lawrence School on Tuesday last week. And as part of the district's Juneteenth planning, we welcomed Carol and Jeffrey Boston Weatherford to the school to speak with 4 grades of students. Carol and Jeffrey are author and illustrator of color respectively, and they presented to the entire Lawrence School at once, both grades. And following that, they did assemblies for the entire third and fourth grade from all the elementary schools in the district. Their books are targeted for audiences from elementary and middle school. With Lawrence, they featured the title You Can Fly, a book about the Tuskegee Airmen, and the students really had a great time at the assembly. It was really great to welcome guests, and the kids were engaged. In an effort to prep the students for that portion of the day, we showed a promotional video about the guests, and our ELA teachers, thanks to Rose, had some of the younger texts that they previewed with the students in the days leading up to the visit. Following that, we went about our day with a modified bell schedule to make time at the end of the day for more celebratory and educational grade-based activities. That afternoon, our 8th graders started with their advisory groups, where they had a menu of options available in their Schoology pages. The menu of options ranged from Juneteenth trivia cahoots and bookets to PBS video clips and flag design activities. And the 7th graders at the same time were outdoors, where they were treated to a snack and a movement break, had a bracelet table, and were exposed to a diverse local music duo, Nico and Charles, who played a Black Positivity set list. The grades then switched with the indoor activities group going outside, and the outdoor activity coming inside. And thanks to Sarah Vendetti and some friends over here at Central Office, we were able to procure some funding for each student and staff member to receive a Lawrence School Juneteenth t-shirt. And I have an extra one here. I'm gonna leave it on the table for anyone who has a small student at home if they want. But the importance of this t-shirt is the design on the t-shirt was Olivia Finn, who's a current 8th grader. It was her winning entry in last year's Juneteenth poster competition. So we get to promote our local artists as well. And lastly, just a shout out to the members of my school's Eddie group, working hard all year to do good work around equity, diversity, and inclusion. At this time, I would like to kick it off to Mr. Thomas McMahon, interim principal of Falmouth High School, and an old friend.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks again for having us this evening. I'm going to speak about the culminating Juneteenth event we had at Falmouth High, which was called the Juneteenth Freedom Walk. This was sponsored by the sophomore class officers and by the FHS Diversity Club. And to me, the coolest part of this whole thing was that the idea came and started from kids. It was something they wanted to do, and they worked with both school administration and with central office and Dr. Dewar especially to workshop it and brainstorm it and come up with something that I believe was pretty powerful. What we did was the Monday after Juneteenth, we used our Clipper Time block, and every single student at Falmouth High School reported outside to the Falmouth High School track, where they spent the 33-minute period walking around the track. The students who helped us organize this had posted signs around the track that included both quotes and statistics about the Black experience or the history of Juneteenth in general. And it was very powerful for students to walk around, to reflect. But along with that, we also had every single entry from this year's Falmouth Public Schools Juneteenth commemorative poster contest posted along the track as well. So that alone, the visual aspect and the chance for kids to kind of take in this information, to think about it was very important, but also again, with the support from Dr. Dewar in central office, we were able to hire the Kikeli African Drum and Dance Group, who's a group out of UMass Dartmouth, who came and performed for students. They were right in the middle of the track on the grass. And so students could stop and listen, they could join in the dancing, they could take a break and take in that aspect of the experience as well. So overall, I thought it was just a wonderful chance for our students to both celebrate and reflect on an important day. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Dewar.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing the highlights. Everyone's important. There's also been challenges, and so two of the challenges I'll speak to now are the professional development around the restorative practices. So it's setting those clear expectations, but then needing to repeat them over and over so staff understand that. So this year was a professional learning year. There was no expectations that the teachers needed to begin any practice. So in the beginning and through the winter, Dr. Curtis Bates trained all of our staff across the district, first as large groups and then with each individual school's follow up. And then those that wanted to try the circles and practice what they've learned, the principals and Dr. Bates and Dr. Sayama Musi actually came back into the schools and either modeled for them, or if teachers wanted to have a circle and then get feedback from them, they could do that. That was their choice. And so it was starting to move in that direction. But I think that the challenge was that we needed to continually support that message. Teachers are wonderful, and if they've been trained in something, it is their nature to want to try things or feel as though they should. And so I think it was reiterating that this year was just a learning year, and we will set those expectations for next year, and knowing that this is a 3 to 5 year initiative. The second initiative that I will mention that had its challenges was the rollout of the social emotional learning portion, the new portion that we added this year. And the rollout was slow, a lot because it was intended. It was huge. We needed time to establish the assessments. We needed to initiate training. There was a new assessment at the high school. It was actually a student self-assessment, which was very new to the company as well as to us. The resources were many in the Aperture, and so being able to become familiar with the Aperture platform, being able to train staff on that platform, and just being able to help figure out what resources, because there were a lot of resources. So we certainly gave a lot of attention and effort, but there was a lot of learning both on the administration and staff this year. And so it was a slow rollout. It'll continue next year. So with that, I'm gonna turn it back over to Dr. Tellier.
And so as you were talking, Dr. Dewar, I think one of the things that we emphasize, right, is that 3 to 5 years of affecting lasting change. And so here we are starting to frame out year 3 of this particular goal. And looking at us collecting data and looking at how we've done to assess our progress fully. And I think, in framing the beginning of outlining the goal and having Mr. Adams speak to the progress, we talked a lot about what we're doing as the adults, and then listening to the examples of what we're seeing our students doing and how they're accepting the modeling and bringing it forward. We want to pull all of that together so that we can continue and to really make sure that it's affecting our practice as a lasting and meaningful part of that. So then we shift to our second goal.
Oh, I jumped right over this slide. Didn't know the delay, just jumped it. Here we go. So the rationale and our focus on continuing to build momentum with our partnership with the professionals of Woods Hole and the greater Falmouth community. Over the course of this year, we were fortunate to be able to introduce Dr. Sarah Vendetti as our learning partnerships specialist. And Sarah spent the later part of the summer and the early part of this past school year developing relationships, understanding what we had been doing, and trying to figure out just how much we could bring back to life. Some of the partners were still closed or working remotely at the beginning of the year. So in the beginning, here's our rationale, kind of looking at building off of those collaborative efforts and really trying to make sure that we're taking those relationships and affecting our curriculum. And as we got going, and as our goal statement says, that sustained engagement with our partners, that allows us to enrich teaching and learning. So we have pictures here of some of our sixth graders on their way up to Pennakees, loving the sea spray and high velocity of the boat, and giving us various forms of smiles on the trip out. But the whole idea around the partnership is to really look at how we talk about stewardship for our environment, conserving energy and resources, and really coming to understand our coastal systems, because, you know, in Falmouth, we're surrounded by 65 miles of coastline, in addition to the islands that we're allowing our students to access that, you know, many of us growing up here may not have had ready access to, and building off of that. So it's pretty exciting that as we build off of that, we can look towards the specific focal points for this year, which included, again, building and maintaining those relationships, cultivating the skills to empower our teachers across the district to plan and facilitate partnership-sponsored learning, both bringing partners in and taking students out to our partners. Connecting in with the outdoor classroom committee, as well as the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, and being able to build out, as you'll see in our progress, some of our after-school programming, and then setting the expectations for year 3. So I'd like to turn it over, if I may, to Cindy Casanellis to talk a little bit about our progress.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hilliard. So you can see the progress update. I'm not going to speak specifically to each bullet, but just highlight a few things. So for example, our first graders visited Shipwrecks Pond this year, and they explored the pond and the vernal pool ecosystem with the 300 committee, and they also participated in a mindful walk with Calmer Choice. Our third grade students had an Earth Day field trip that was also supported by an in-class lesson on oyster filtration. Their field trip was at Goodwill Park, and students learned about some of the trash and recycling. There were some contests as well. The older students in grade 5 did visit the National Seashore this year for a day, and our grade 6 students went to Pennakees Island. So for the Outdoor Learning Committee, they've been working with the Rotary Club to support the installation of a nature trail at the T-Ticket School. There's one as well at the Mullen Hall School. So the one at the T-Ticket School, there are 10 markers between the school and the T-Ticket Park with QR codes that the students or community members could scan for a 30-second clip about the animals or something that is along the trail. So the scripts that you hear actually match the elementary science curriculum. So that's a pretty fun trip, and our students have used that quite a bit. At the Lawrence School, the 7th graders were able to return to the elementary schools with the CAS program. And we also had the science fair again in person this year. And we had some after school activities that were new to the elementary schools that focused on science and culture. So the return of all of the in-person field trips and the classroom visits has really enriched all of our students' education this school year. Next, I'm going to turn this back over to Mr. Tim Adams.
Sure. So the spotlight from North Falmouth, we were able to have a pilot for a new project called BioBlitz. This was a new program that was piloted by Mrs. Christy Castleberry's second grade classroom in collaboration with Dr. Vendetti. Really, the purpose was to start to look at our outdoor environments that are around our schools and how we can utilize those outdoor classrooms. So they were really interested in using local resources to meet the second grade standards for investigating ecosystems, living things, adaptations, and what plants and animals need to survive in the environment. And the environment they went to go explore was right next door to Thorn Farm, kind of surrounding area of Thorn Farm. They get to measure a small plot of land, they were making observations, and then they were really taking real-time data out in the field like a scientist would. And being able to take that data back to the classroom to analyze, discuss, compare, and then head back out later on to get comparison data later in the spring. So this project was a great success, and it's going to be scaled up across the district for next year. Wonderful collaboration with Dr. Vendetti and a new experience for our second grade. Turn it over to Mrs. Rose Moran from Mullen Hall for another highlight.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. A highlight from Mullen Hall supporting this goal again. Okay. Was the partnership with Woods Hole Professional Community. And a highlight from this partnership was that our kindergarten students across the district were introduced to a rich experience through Kindergarten Oceans Day. The event was planned through the joint efforts of kindergarten teacher Maureen Titchener and Dr. Vendetti again. And the Mullen Hall School hosted this event in the outdoor learning space behind the building. Students partnered with the NOAA Fisheries and they investigated organisms, participated in a hands-on fish station. It did get a little smelly towards the end of the day, but the students enjoyed the entire time. And they also learned about sea turtles and built a model of a spout to explore its anatomy to further understand how they survive in the ocean. They actively were learning about their royal world through the experience. And now I'm turning it back over to Dr. Dorr.
Thank you. So again, wonderful opportunities. I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenges. Dr. Tyler touched on it in the beginning, and that was just through COVID, being able to really connect with our partners. And even this year, as she said, many of them did not come back. So even though for years now, we've been planning that day in the village for the 7th graders, we were unable to do that again this year because they're just not back yet. But I really need to give a shout out to Sarah Vendetti, as everyone else has. She's been invaluable keeping the partnerships this year, going through our liaison meetings and our fall, winter, and spring forums, but also just the work she's done around ensuring that every student, kindergarten through 8th grade, actually had an experience that was connected with some of our partners in the community. So it is has been a challenge, but I do think that we've overcome a lot of that in just a different way. It was pivoting to new activities and new opportunities for students. And with that, back to Dr. Tyler.
All right, thank you. So as we look beyond just the scope of teaching and learning through the partnership, and we talk more about understanding that influence and the impact of the past couple of years, we want to broaden our focus on goal 2 going into next year to the broader scope of teaching and learning. So we've shared with you, as you have in the packet, a little bit around the rationale, just how we've accelerated professional learning, we've accelerated growth, and we're looking at the challenges and really making sure that how we approach learning is relevant to the ways in which our students are changing and asking for support and being able to wrap around them, but also that it's coming back to that lasting impact and the deepened impact of equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging, and making sure that we're pulling all of that together so that everything has complementary relationship one to the other. And so as we do that and set benchmarks for measuring our outcomes and success, we look towards year 3 really becoming a year 1 and morphing into this broader goal around teaching and learning. So coming into next year, it's our intention to restore our Tech for Learning team. We want to continue to cultivate the skills that empower our colleagues to plan and facilitate learning that's personalized at scale. We have started a process both through our curriculum council and in working with some of our elementary coaches and certainly our team of principals to reassess how we approach grading and progress reporting and looking at mastery and proficiency based and just understanding what's happening in that world and how it could affect us or support us. Creating the Learning Access Advisory Committee and working with the school committee to support that and build out goals. And then continuing to set expectations and continued implementation as we also look at deepening our work with the Portrait of a Graduate, charting the course to graduation, the hashtag I'm a Clipper, and then also building off of, as the principals have shared, work around being college, career, and community ready, and then really focusing in around that shared responsibility in our work. And so as we think about that, we have one additional goal, goal 3, that we want to talk a little bit about. And so goal 3 really was initiated in response to COVID, and it was around the models for safety, engagement, and learning. And the rationale here is from the Stronger Together reopening plan from the fall of 20. And that's really where this goal was rooted. And coming into this year, we still had a number of restrictions, and thankfully, as we're easing our way out, we're seeing a difference. And then just to complement that rationale, nothing patient with any problems, is that theory of action that was also in the reopening plan, looking across the different dimensions for structuring learning, designing and delivering the instruction, having the positive learning environment, and then ensuring the safety and health measures so that our students can be ready and able to engage. So as we think our way through this progress, we return to a graphic that we had introduced to you with our goal statement, that we were leveraging the safety protocols, again, to just keep our kids available and engaged in their learning. So as we talk more about our progress this year, I'd like to turn it over to Principal Bushy from the Lawrence School. Kick us off.
Thank you, Dr. Schreier. So if it's agreeable, I would like to start by speaking to a couple of points on the right side for the student safety, since safety is always the district's top priority. The district was extremely supportive of each school, ensuring that we all had what we needed to keep all members of the school community safe, students, staff, what little guests we had to start the year. Some real unsung heroes here, our custodial staff. They had all the supplies they needed, masks, hand sanitizer, air filters, purifiers, cleaning agents, but there was an all hands deck on approach. In addition to just having everything they needed, they were eager to do the work. They knew how important that component of it was, and they were thorough, and it was just a critical asset to us getting through. Health offices, of course, were appropriately staffed with a nurse and health assistant. They gracefully managed the volume of COVID-related work on top of the regular school ailments in the last year. Kids were, were kind of sticking to their home base, their classrooms this year. It was back to, needed cough drops and Band-Aids and the routine visits. And of course, the COVID team still at it today, working, whatever hours necessary. But in the fall and winter, there was some real, realistically around the clock, not exaggerating work involved there. And of course, another group in the unsung hero category are food service staff members who just throughout the process went above and beyond to ensure anyone who needed a meal got a meal. They were understanding and accommodating. And that's something you might not realize being outside the school, but just the gentle nature of their interactions with kids, making everyone feel safe and welcome. And, not everyone's crazy about coming out to grab a free meal. We're so skillful in their daily interactions that go unnoticed. Moving on over the course of the year, another bullet about routine communications with families and colleagues had been an ongoing focus for all the building principals, and in an effort to ensure that everyone was updated on a regular basis about routine school business, specialty events, or extenuating circumstances. Each of us established a routine of a weekly communication with families and staff members. Mine went out on Friday night at 6:30 to families, about 4:30-ish for faculty. And I think I speak for all the principals here, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was absolutely a significant increase in the volume of communications. And the challenges and pros to that scenario. The challenges, of course, are the time it takes to pen those general communications and responding to the accompanying correspondences that come with it. But the pro is a stronger connection with families and an increased likelihood that folks will reach out as they have an understanding that building leadership is more accessible. So, that to me, that's enough motivation to make that a lasting practice. And then moving over to the student engagement side, touch on a few of the bullets over there. Throughout the process, yes, we were concerned about the safety. Of course, we never lost focus on the fact that we needed to engage our students. through the pandemic. As a district, we prioritize services to help students access the school learning. Across the district, counseling services were increased primarily through adjustment counselors, but there was a renewed energy around coordination teams, weekly meetings to focus on supporting students, as well as working with support many staff members that were expanding their teaching strategies to engage reluctant learners or students displaying problematic behaviors. The district also expanded its use in this as an overlap of some of the aspects of some of the goals. The aperture system and having the DESA rating system through all the way through grade 8, and in the high school, as Dr. Doerr mentioned, the self-assessment. The scales are helpful in gleaning information, and though we're early in the process here, there's good momentum to learn what kind of resources, the information that we get in the ratings will feel helpful for us in supporting individual student needs going forward. The district also increased staffing and support for students, and we mentioned some of the monitors and the safety, being expansion of that with the safety monitors, but each building had a permanent base building sub. And over the course, of course, it's extremely helpful in keeping students moving forward academically. When we had a staff member or student who was out, a staff member was out for an extended period of time, and having consistent substitutes is helpful in as much as they become part of the school community. They build a rapport with the colleagues and the students as well. And having an email address to keep them involved and engaged in correspondences as well. School monitors were an integral part in keeping students engaged. The monitors were available. This maybe is more of an issue at the secondary level, but we had some kids that were having a difficult time getting used to back into the swing of things with the format. So with some disengaged scenarios, having someone in the building, a trusted adult saying, let's get back to class here, before it becomes an administrative scenario, getting those students back into the learning environment. And then I didn't realize, I was glad to hear the DIPS promotion there, but it was really wonderful seeing those DIPS folks get back to it. And we knew that there's a noticeable increase in need for student supports, but a lack of local services available, so some counseling scenarios that we were struggling to link up with. But just seeing the kids get with these mentors, which is definitely under that umbrella. The volunteers, they're faithful, they're consistent, and they're there, and it's just great to see the students in person reconnecting with some of those longtime mentors that they were zooming with over the last couple of years. One more bullet, we were able to ensure access to learning for quarantine or isolated students through the district's adopted learning management system, Schoology, which provided a uniform way for staff to post work that could be accessed by students that were in school, quarantined or isolated, all the same venue, or just a student who's absent, they're wishing to keep up with work, submit work, and monitor progress over the course of the school year. And the tech support, that group needs a shout out as well for keeping us up and running with our Chromebooks when one was busted, having the loaner, and then supporting the students being able to access the curriculum to that. So before I go, I just want to say again, it's a pleasure to be able to speak with all of you. And at this time, I'm going to send the microphone to Mr. Paul Goodheim, the principal of East Falmouth Elementary School in Newford.
You saw Mike, I didn't like. Thank you very much, Mr. Bushy. And I think it's just really cool to be here. This is my second year. It's the first time that I've been in this room with you folks in person. So I think that's just neat in itself. From what I've heard so far, my two big takeaways tonight are renewed optimism in our schools and renewed opportunities for our students. The fact that we're all here in person, unmasked, is an indication of how far we've come, how far we have come since March 13th, that day in infamy, 2020. Although masks were still required at the beginning of the year, the classrooms physically looked once again much like pre-COVID days. In reality, however, things were very different, somewhat different, and very different. Just to name a few of the more obvious changes, learning spaces were organized in more efficient ways, and there were many more opportunities for technology integration as well as outdoor learning. Eventually, the mask mandate was lifted and a real sense of normalcy began to take shape. It actually felt a bit strange to not have a mask. I'd often come out of my office and grab my mask and it's like, I don't need it. I don't have to wear it, although I had the option to wear it. It just was a bit odd. And even now, I mean, I go into places sometimes where masks are encouraged, and it's not that foreign to slide the mask back on because we did it for so long. You could begin to feel the positive impact for students and staff. Instructionally, yes, obviously, but more importantly, it was emotional. The implementation of the test and stay program allowed the schools to avoid whole class quarantines and supported the shift of having more staff and students remain in school. It was not without early challenges with some bumps in the road. It was labor intensive for the nursing program. However, additional district support, including Tom mentioned, the COVID team, helped to lighten the load significantly. Successful vaccination clinics and the distribution of home testing kits for students and staff all contributed to more learning time in school. As the year went on, guidelines from state and local officials continued to morph and certain restrictions were relaxed. We continue to do symptomatic testing in schools today and tracking of all our COVID numbers. Masking for 5 days after a positive tested person returns to school is now required. The quarantine used to be for 10 days. Now it's for 5 at home and 5 days of masking upon return to school, as long as the symptoms are resolving. So in closing, I'd like to say that the resiliency and the perseverance of our families, our students, and our staff have helped bring vibrancy and energy back to our schools. And we are all very, very thankful. I will now turn it over to my esteemed colleague from Morse Pond, Reverend Vincent.
Thank you. And thank you for allowing us to present tonight. So many teachers at North Pond School embed landing pages into the signature portion of their email. This link provides insight into the teacher's classroom, access to relevant, up-to-date classroom information, school information, in addition to links to the weekly playlist where parents can access and view upcoming week's assignments. Landing pages are helpful because they allow parents to see what is expected of their child, and landing pages are updated on a regular basis. Parents are also able to see what their child has completed or needs to complete based on the information provided in Google Classroom. Teachers have found that landing pages are a convenient and constructive tool for effective communication between home and school. And at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Joy for the next segment of our presentation.
Thank you, guys. So we have met all of our obligations to our goal 3 around COVID and engaging students back to learning. And it's DESE has returned us back to in-person learning without restrictions. And at this time, we want to shift this goal to a new goal 3. And the most important concern right now is the school safety. So our new goal is the Falmouth Public Schools will leverage best practices in student and staff safety. Many of these I will not go into depth because we just had a presentation. But some of the areas of concentration will be to enhance current security measures. And that does include getting better or getting back to or making improvements to our routines and protocols. We'll restore our regular staff and student training to Alice, reinforce staff use of the Navigate, increase our police presence, and increase safety and security staff in all schools. So that will be our focus goal for next year. I would like to thank all of our principals. We have an incredible team, incredible principals, and I really appreciate everything. And to our central office staff, because it takes all of us. And I do appreciate everyone here. So thank you.
Questions or comments from the school committee? Andrea, I see the
I
hand.
had a lot, but I was gonna wait for somebody else to go first. Well, I wanted to start with, most of them are actually around goal 1. And I just wanted to
draw some attention to in your goal statement, that you work to foster that common district-wide language and expectation for equity. And it's just like a short phrase in there, but that is so huge that if you don't have that real expectation, nothing else is going to work. And so I know that there's a lot that goes into that, even though it's very few words. So I appreciate the effort that you put toward that. And I don't know who is the best one to answer some of these questions, but in the year 2, in the areas of concentration, one of the bullets there is to make systemic changes to inform our hiring practices and mentoring strategies. And I was wondering if there was anybody that had some examples of what that looks like.
So we're gonna have a full presentation on that tonight. Dr. Santa will be talking about that. Okay. We can do it here, but I think we should wait.
Perfect, okay, we'll pass that one through. I guess in that same list there, and maybe there's another presentation tonight, it says to assess progress through informal feedback from students and staff. And again, I was wondering if there were examples, because I'm always looking for that feedback, in particular from students as well as staff.
So I think one of the ways that we started to get feedback, in particular from students, is the request to do more, like they're seeing what we're doing. And so some of the examples, whether it was looking at the freedom walk being developed by the students at the high school, or even the way some of the students leaned into the Juneteenth celebration festival. There you go. Go ahead.
So our Eddie group, whom I shouted out earlier, just recently asked students specifically, very short, 2-question form. What, did you notice the activities that we promoted during advisory and is there anything that you would like to see us do next year? Just specifically, and we did get some feedback from some students that there's one student specifically that asked about us to promote more Indian heritage. So, I have a meeting tomorrow to speak with a student about and get some insight from her about how we can grow. So we gave them an opportunity to say what they thought we were doing well, how we can improve, and it's a good feedback.
Some of the other feedback, developing resources to support conversations around LGBTQ youth, the 2 questions that are coming up, how to talk about Pride Month and to really think about that and how we're approaching it. So just through the different channels, both from students and staff, hearing that information and just trying to process that across the work we're doing.
That's fabulous. That's really amazing. I think it's just so important to keep the work moving forward and meeting the real needs. Another question I had was around the restorative practices. And Laura, you had mentioned that this was a learning year and that there was no expectation to implement anything. And so some of the teachers who did, were there any teachers implementing the restorative practices or the circles that didn't have that feedback and support system in place, the people to be watching it, modeling it, helping it? Was there any that was just kind of going on without that support?
I'm sure that that's the case. I'm going to turn it over to the principals, whoever would like to address this, because I think they did see some good practices of teachers.
I think there were a lot of teachers that were already using a lot of components of restorative practices and certain restorative circles just in their work, in their previous trainings, in their own experiences. And so when, having several meetings with Dr. Bates about really what circles were all about as it relates to restorative practices. And then the powerful, impactful part for me was when he came to the building and he modeled, and the kids were so responsive. They really got into it. He was, and he worked in different grade levels, so it wasn't scripted, but he had prepared differently for different aged kids and the questions he would ask and the, kind of probing parts of the circles that he would do. And then invariably the kids would say, they would all come around, not every child, because some were reluctant to speak, and that was fine. But the overall response was they really thought it was awesome to have the opportunity to talk in a circle about whatever the topic was. but it was in a structured way. And it elicited responses, like emotional responses from kids, kind of deep answers that I hadn't heard them say before. So that was just really powerful to see it in practice.
Andrea, if I heard your question correctly too, you're also kind of asking about the early adopters, the people who are eager. And the nice thing was the district gave us the capability to set up some structures and some systems. One that comes to mind is that I was lucky to teach or work some professional development with Rose, where we opened up a weekly opportunity for teachers. We started as a book study, but what it quickly became was a safe space for teachers to come and say, this thing you tried, we talked about last week, I tried it and it did not go well. And usually it was me saying that and starting the meeting that way, that something didn't go well. And then we could kind of workshop together, okay, what can we do better next time? And what are the successes that we're encountering as we try these different things out? And I think that that's really important, because you're gonna have people that are learning from the start and need a lot more training, and some people who are raring to go. And if you can kind of balance both of those needs for all people, I think that's most important.
That's great that you have that safe space, because starting anything new like this, that people have to sort of step outside of their comfort zone and try something new, they're going to need all that support. And I along with that, the students and the families of students who are participating in these will, also need those supports. And how amazing to be able to watch someone who's a master at it model. That's just really what shows you where it can go. When you were just describing a lot of just the general activities that have across all the goals, one of the things that I noticed coming up really regularly was how much movement was being added into all these different activities. It's something that the Wellness Committee talks about a lot, about just adding movement in, and it always seemed like it was just like an ideal that we'd like to get to, but when I hear it just happening over and over again, it's obviously something that can be done and is being embraced. So I love seeing that. The last thing, I'll breathe, is in the new goal 3 statement around safety and security. And I guess just a comment as that's being looked at and being put together is to, we're going to have a new director of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and to bring that person into the conversation, as well as students, to make sure that we know what security and safety looks like for all students, because it's not always the same.
Okay, thank you. Can I just, I want to go back to that same, I know where I'm at, goal 1. I saw on a later page about the Cape Verdean Museum, which is fantastic. I think that was, I'm assuming that grade 2 was East Falmouth walked over there?
Okay, grade 3.
No need for a bus?
Yeah, grade 2 and 3 did later on.
Is that something that we can incorporate? It's right there,
Right there.
right with all the schools.
Later.
And if I can have a moment to, Mr. Adams, I don't know if this is your idea, but I know at Falmouth, they had each student chose a country of their origin they came in. And I listened to some of my daughter's friends talking. It was fascinating, just stuff that I didn't know about countries that I'm from. Just different parts. So, when you're not only Cape Verde Museum, but also, Portuguese Museum, other stuff like that. I like all this stuff, but obviously stuff that's right in our town is easy to, we're in our town or, in neighboring communities. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All of grade 2 was able to.
Across,
yes,
yeah,
across the schools, all the
Okay,
other.
cool.
Just didn't cost us any gas.
It's cheaper for you, yeah. But I thought if it's there in town, you might as well.
Yeah, they incorporated a writing response in addition to their field trip experience, so.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Great. Lori, I have a question. The new goal 3 statement, what is navigate?
Good question. I'm gonna let Patrick describe that.
Sure, it's a app that schools have adopted, and it allows any staff who downloads the app to alert their school, district, and police force if they feel like there's an intruder a different kind of emergency, emergency communication.
That's great. And do we do like yearly or, quarterly training on that? Okay, excellent.
Yes, we have. We're gonna increase next year, the amount of practice with it.
Yeah.
So that it's not just, a couple times a year while we're doing drills. So the principals, during staff meetings will be practicing with it. So they become real comfortable. That's a good.
Thank you. Any other questions? Margaret?
Yeah, in terms of cultural proficiency, that's sort of this, how do we understand others? I'm wondering if there's any focus on people realizing that they have culture, because that's what interferes with understanding others.
So we, in our work with Henry St. Julian and Derek Zara, coming in or through last year, they wrote 3 one-credit graduate courses, and we partnered with Bridgewater Credit. The first of their courses is people understanding themselves and kind of looking inward. The second one is looking at their classroom environment. The third one is their interaction with community. So they start off, with sort of that equation. Do you have a brain? Do you make decisions? Do you have culture? Do you have bias? And they kind of unpack that a little bit, and they create themselves a safe space. And I think part of it too is the way they invite people into the conversation. So we're running another course 2 right now. I'm planning to launch our first course 3 at the beginning of next year. And we've had a pretty significant number of people across the district join us in course 1.
Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome.
Sorry.
One last comment. One of the students, remember I went in and listened to do their final projects, and they were talking about you should also look at how you're alike, not just how you're different, not learning about differences, but how you're alike too. So that was always from students coming the best ideas.
Absolutely. So in saying that, Terry, and back to Andrea's other question, we've never seen so many thank you notes and cards from kids coming back from the field trips or after experiences. So we've been getting just these packets and thank you, especially the elementary ones with the extra drawings, and the big posters that they've been sending them in. And it's just a reminder, right, of who we do it for and why. And they're telling us, give us more. So it's pretty cool.
Great. Any final questions or comments? This is great. Thank you all for joining us this evening. It's really informative. Yes. Okay, so next up is an update and review of the capital plan and project.
So this is the first time you're seeing, some of you are seeing the updated multi-year capital plan. This is a document that you're familiar with if you've been on the school committee for a while. In July of every year, we do vote on the priorities that we would be making requests from the town. So we're a department of the town. These are capital programs that the town is going to vote on to support. The real difference in this year's capital request is that we've been encouraged to take the opportunity to ask for a little bit more. So the tennis courts would have taken all of our capital allocation from previous years, and we were given the opportunity to ask for a bit more. So the process is we submit them after the vote in July to the town. The town has their own process working with the FinCom, and then it goes to, if approved to move forward, it goes to the November town meeting for final approval. But votes happen in July. So if you have any questions about specific projects, we can give you a call.
Any questions or comments? Melissa?
I'm happy to see that we've been encouraged to ask for more for the tennis courts at the high school. I know that's been a one of contention with some.
Which will have pickleball
That
lines.
was actually my question.
That's the
Why
real
can't we
thing.
talk about pickleball? I really just
There
talking
will be
about
pickleball lines.
tennis right now.
But I'm a neighbor there to the pickleball by the high school, and I won't say a word if they're playing.
They're not.
I'll be glad if they're playing pickleball.
So, But I'm really excited to hear about the tennis court getting the much needed facelift and upgrading that it's gonna get. And I know the other ones are super important too, but that's been such a big deal, so.
Andrea, so Patrick, I know we have this, many years, and I don't always remember what's from year to year. So is that the only change from what this would have looked like last year, or have there been changes in priorities within FY
So
'23?
because we were given the go-ahead to ask for a little bit more, it did move some things forward. So the FHS mobile phone infrastructure was something new that has come onto our radar per se. And then some of the other ones are things that had been sort of pushed up a little bit.
Any other questions or comments? No, okay. Well, then as always, you can email Patrick if you have anything that comes up later tonight or tomorrow. Okay, next on the agenda, update on staffing. Dr. Santana.
Am I gonna be able to share my screen? I've only been doing this for 2 years. I know we have a packed agenda. I'm gonna ask for your patience as I go through this, only because we haven't had an update in staffing in 2 years or a year and a half. And also I know there are new members on. Our goal always in our hiring season is to retain highly qualified educators for all of our students. And I always compare it to building a team. If you're building a basketball team, you want to make sure that as players retire and leave, other players that come in complement that team, both with strengths and challenges, and that they can work together. And so it's the same for hiring. You want to make sure to be really thoughtful about who's coming into the different buildings, into the different positions, where the schools are. Right now at the high school, for instance, we have a change in leadership, 2 crucial positions. We want to make sure that people that come in have experience and are able to hit the ground running. Our application process is we utilize Talent Ed for all of our postings, for submittal of applications. That platform also comes with the capacity to advertise on Indeed, School Spring, Monster, and other platforms as part of what we pay for. Our hiring managers continue to screen the applicants, schedule interviews, conduct background reference checks in accordance with the commissioner's requirements, and they recommend the candidates for hire after they do reference checks of direct supervisors. The HR office then provides curated resources for all the hiring managers, including sample questions to consider from the Massachusetts Partnership for Diversity in Education, and also the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's Careful Hiring Practices Guidance. And that comes out from the commissioner every year. Our recruitment for 22-23, here are some of the positions that we were recruiting for. We're in pretty good shape with waiting for finalists who were offered positions to sign and send back their letters. Most have already done most of their onboarding, so I feel pretty confident where we are right now. But here are some of the positions that we had to fill. We had a lot of administrative positions that we were looking at, and we continue to look at. It depends 1 year to the next, who leaves, who comes, what attrition looks like as to what we're recruiting for. So this is a snapshot of 22-23 for us.
And job fairs and recruitment, the virtual world or in person for the 22-23 years is one of the busiest so far. So I think that one of the good things that came out of the pandemic was this pivot to virtual platforms, and people have become more and more comfortable with them. I love the platforms that allow us to collect resumes so that we can then, when something becomes available, reach back out, and it helps us with networking. I know you have questions about our diversity and recruitment efforts, so I went back to 1819 to start looking at what our demographic information looked like and what our results were in terms of hires. And I have been pretty vocal in saying that our diversity recruitment can't stand alone. It also has to come with us being able to have retention. And for that, all hiring managers need to work on what it looks like to support our diverse hires and how we make sure that their voices are heard, that they're comfortable, and that the be and belonging is real. In 1920, there was a little bit of an uptick, but you'll notice that I put 3 bullets, the 3 triangles where we increased our presence in job fair or held a job fair internally in the district. And we did not see an increase in diversity in some of our unit A, B, C, or D positions like we wanted to. So essentially, we continue to focus on getting more applicants and more focus on diversifying our teaching force. In 2021, there is a bit of an uptick there as well. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that when the pandemic hit, March 13, 2020, March is typically when we launch our assertive recruitment. We post all the jobs for people who have resigned or for retirement. And we pretty much were all on pause. The world was on pause. Some of the job fairs that we were used to going to and had some momentum in had to pivot and not be in person and didn't pivot fast enough to have a virtual platform. So it was a rocky year, but I have to say that we did fill our positions, and we did move forward with additional positions due to COVID and fill those as well. I think you see the benefit in 21 and 22, where we definitely have an uptake in different positions where we had a lot more diversity and a lot more diverse hires. The Massachusetts Partnership for Diversity in Education also had a few job fairs and had presence at other virtual job fairs. And then for all of us who are member districts, we had access to those applicants or those registrants for our jobs. And so that was very helpful. I still go back now to those spreadsheets and cold email, cold call folks who have the background or the licenses for what we're looking for. Any questions so far? And so here I pulled some additional resources and information from our Talent Ed platform. It shows how many people applied and the breakdown demographically of the people who applied year to year. I didn't think it made sense for us to compare one year to another. It made more sense to compare the percentage each year in our applicant pool. And a little friend, COVID-19, showed up for the 1920 school year. And like I said, it did put a little bit of a wrinkle in things, but we did pivot fairly quickly. And I thought we saw the benefit of that when we came back in 2021. I want to call out that we have quite a big number of people who apply for positions, but either decline to identify a diverse background, either racially or ethnically, or don't respond at all. Those are two different metrics, people who decline to identify and then those who just don't check anything at all. And we can't legally require that at application. That is it's very difficult. It's one of our biggest challenges in terms of being able to pull applicants into the hiring, into the interview stream. However, we've been focusing on that, including language on our website to invite folks to actually identify, let them know that we value diversity. That's one of the things that actually make people want to say what their diverse or racial ethnic background is. And so the next 2 years, 2021 and 21-22 are up, and you'll notice that there's a lot more green. We are not satisfied with the numbers. I mean, it's inching up very slowly. We want to see more green, more percentages, but it is definitely going in the right direction. So I think some of the recommendations from experts around how to get more folks to identify might be working. And so this next slide shows what recruitment in terms of applications look like over the years, with the last 2 years highlighted in bold because they had not been reported out until now. We're seeing a pretty healthy increase. I think we've got sourcing down pat. And then support. New hires are onboarded through human resources as well as the business office through the benefits piece and the office in teaching and learning with the new educator orientation, induction mentor, and coaching support along the way. We also in HR, if we hire after the launch of the school year, make sure that every new hire that comes in gets mandatory training that they missed from the beginning of the school year, including Navigate, and including the ALICE training that Officer Hurt actually had put together for us, so that when they come in, they know. We'll continue to provide resources for employees to push wellness and balance through our weekly emails and be a supportive point of contact for anyone who needs help. Opportunities. What just happened? We'll continue to collect and analyze the exit surveys for improvements that we can implement, and also to know if some of the things that we have implemented, should we continue to do those things. We'll continue to implement internal audits to assist us in identifying areas that need attention or possible correction. That's always really important for a department that didn't exist before. We're trying to go back and make sure that things are up to par. We'll continue working with hiring managers to increase the number of qualified licensed individuals for positions, and also on diversifying our staff and looking at how we can do that in all positions system-wide. And there was a reference to that earlier in the night. And I think that that is a focus that all hiring managers want to wrap their heads around. So we're going to make that a focus and a goal for next year. And then we'll continue our focus of collecting demographic information to properly gauge against the student data. That is, again, one of the areas that's very difficult. If we have folks who will not identify, it makes it very difficult to know if our data is essentially moving in the right direction or not. But we are focused on that. And here's where we have some opportunities. So what I did is I took all of the student enrollment data that the Department of Ed has on race and ethnicity for 21-22 against our staffing data for Falmouth in the same areas. And so the goal is for our workforce to mirror that of our student body. And as you can see, it doesn't quite do that right now, but it is up. African American and Asian, Hispanic, and Native American, no change in white or Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander, There was no data. However, in parentheses, you'll see in real numbers, because these are real people, what it would take. So 14 additional hires that are African American, 5 additional hires that are Asian would then mirror what our student body looks like. 33 in Hispanic and 4 in Native American.
While you're on that topic, Johnny, I don't understand why they need to be more equal, the student body and the higher body. I don't understand the reasoning of that.
The benefit of having representation is for the students who are in the schools, for them to be able to see others. If you see other folks who are like you or come from your same race or ethnic background, especially in professional positions, it puts you in a position to see that you can also.
The first sentence you said clear that up. I get it now. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
I'm wondering if the housing situation in Falmouth impacts this.
It does. I mean, I think that it does. However, I think that there's a lot of community support for helping folks in terms of looking for affordable housing, or, I mean, everyone right now is struggling with just finding inventory, right? Or, and now dealing with the rate increase in the interest rates. But there are other folks who've moved in and taken on positions. So I think that we can essentially, with what we pay pretty good salaries, and we do help to spread the word around where housing is available for folks, that I think that we can overcome that.
But just about the housing thing, we have the percentage of students enrolled is higher than those working, so the housing is there. Can we reach out to more local people? Because I mean, because coming in from another place to find housing here is more difficult than if you're already set up here.
Oh, we do
You know
that
what
all
I'm
the
saying?
time.
Like, yeah.
Absolutely. So employer referrals, really strong, really big. There are times, especially during the pandemic, where we reached out to parents directly and emailed them all of our job postings to see who's interested. A lot of our families came in as employees, which I think only made things richer for our district. But in terms of being able to draw diverse thinkers, it's not just racial diversity, right?
Yeah.
But diversity of thought as well, and have other folks come in is really important in terms of representation.
And the other thing is that these aren't all teaching positions,
They are not.
administration. I've seen food services, nurses, special ed aid. Let's talk custodians along these pages. So it's not just one job you're looking for. So we have people in the community who could do this that are local right now.
We have, the bulk of our diversity is in our non-professional staff, so we really want to pay attention to make sure that our professional staff also mirror this too.
Yep.
Right, because then I think there's that danger of a single story where students can go through their entire time in elementary and the only person of color is the custodian.
Yeah.
So we want to be really thoughtful. We love our custodians and they do an amazing job. They also want to see some representation in other positions.
Thanks for this, Joanne. It was really helpful. I do have a couple questions. One is you showed a lot of the charts about diversity in applicants. How does applicants transfer to hires, even if we had some of that information, because I know a lot of people have no response. Is it transferring? Do you know what I mean? Is there a correlation between that?
Not so much. So if this slide that I have now shows essentially what our numbers look like. But if you, let me see if I can go back.
I guess some were saying like you know, those percentages in the green and reds.
Those are hires. So
Oh,
those are actual hires. So what we started doing in human resources, and shout out to Courtney Tiziz, once people were hired, we can ask you the demographic information, and some of those people did provide it. So we're able to provide this data and see it. But that's after you actually are hired.
so the column with the arrow means hired and the other is the applicant.
Yes, I just wanted to
Okay.
show that in 2021, we definitely saw an increase, and that increase has continued.
Okay.
Where all of our columns are green in 21, 22, but it's also a very small percentage.
Mhm.
And it's also not all in the professional staff.
Okay.
So we want to be really thoughtful about that.
Okay.
So once you are hired, we can collect more data.
Okay. And then so in that, the area that on your last slide that was about goals, that is just to get to equity, right? So
That's
it's
just to
not
get to equity.
necessarily that that's realistic, that that's gonna happen.
Correct.
Okay, but that's always your intention.
Yeah, I just wanted, I felt like it was important because with all these percentages, we're talking about real people. So what does that mean in terms of human bodies?
Yeah.
You know, people that we want in the district, and that's what it looks like.
And my last question is about support. So you had a slide about support that HR gives in general to all hires. Is there anything in particular that any diverse hires need in terms of support? Is there additional things that we need to be providing? We talked a little bit about mentoring in one of our goals.
Yes, we do have mentoring. I think that it's an exciting time for the diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging director to be coming on board. And for us to talk about what that looks like in terms of bringing them together and really finding out from people who've been working here and new people who come in, what do you need, what do you want, what does that look like in terms of support? I think that piece is really important. And so I do get folks who reach out to me on an individual basis, and we have one-on-one conversations. Mostly it's just to understand how to get resources or how to deal with a situation that comes up in a way that's productive and helpful. And so I think that the mentorship piece is something we're going to have to work on this summer to really call out what does supporting diverse hires look like in real life, who's able to give that and do it, and what does it look like when you're an active ally?
Yeah, and I even see that in your chart on recruitment. There is this increase in employee referral, and I feel like the bigger that support network is, the more growth there is there. And I feel like, you know, a website or a search engine is one thing, but that is so much more concrete and probably impactful to get you to where you want to be.
Absolutely, and the employees, my gratitude to the employees in the district, because a lot of our really strong hires come from other people who want to bring a good, strong player onto the team. If I can use my basketball analogy.
Thank you so much for that.
I wanted to say that I do want to come back and have another opportunity to bring you up on staffing. We're not done for the 22-23 school year. And also we need to really focus in on how do we get our current staff to identify so that we can have data that we feel really strongly about. So I don't know if the school committee you know, is gonna have a goal around diversifying the staff, but maybe an ask from the school committee member might, or the whole school committee might be something that makes a difference with employees to actually identify, so that we can have numbers that we feel a little bit more concrete about.
Well, and then I have questions on.
Yeah, so, you know, in kind of to follow up in the question that Terry asked earlier, it is extremely important for every student to have those role models like that. And I completely agree with that. And I do believe it is important for us to make sure that we look to make sure that our staff is as diverse as we can make it. There are a lot of highly qualified folks who do not fit the demographics that we're looking to increase. What would you tell those folks about coming to work for Falmouth School that may listen to a presentation like this and say, well, I don't know that I really want to identify in my application because I'm not who they're currently looking for. What would you tell someone like me if I was applying?
So I don't want to give the impression that recruitment efforts are only for diverse hires. So our recruitment is across the board for highly qualified individuals. We make a point of making sure to reach out and use platforms that allow us to get our postings in front of diverse candidates, right? So I use a lot of, I use the Twitter, it's all with your, the Twitter, Facebook, and Mr. Weber has been very supportive in using the Twitter and the Facebook from the school, not just from the district, not just HR, but other ways of reaching members from the LGBTQ community and all of these ethnic backgrounds, able-bodied people, disabilities, all folks. So part of my job is to make sure that our reach is there. So the other platforms that are pretty common have an overwhelming number of applicants qualified, highly qualified, that look like you. And so that's never going to be a shallow pool.
Right. But they would never be excluded because they.
No, no,
That's-
no, no, no,
yeah,
not at all.
And that's what I wanted folks to understand.
No, not at all, not at all.
Thank you.
And in fact, in this slide, it says no change under white. There isn't anything to change. It's very hardy and it continues to be hardy, right? So if it wasn't, if we started seeing like something weird happening, you know, I think we would need to look into like what's going on. But this is a very, Falmouth and the Cape are a very attractive place to come and work and live. And so I want to make sure that everybody knows that and we make sure our reach goes out to marginalized communities that otherwise may not have known. Or sometimes you feel welcomed when somebody tells you you're welcome, and we want you to apply.
We're expanding where we're reaching.
Yes.
We're not limiting anybody's ability to be hired.
Thank you. Yes,
Okay, thank you.
that's a beautiful way to put it.
Great. I have a question about the exit surveys. What information have you received from the surveys that you conducted so far? Just any consistent themes or any?
I don't see a lot of consistent themes. I know that the one thing I know for folks who are leaving that are not retiring, it's typically because they're moving. And so there's a pretty big military presence of families that come and stay for a few years and go. So we see that level of movement. The pandemic put a little bit of a monkey wrench into things in terms of people having to make different decisions in their lives because of their loved ones. But that's what I see most of, is that they're happy with the salary, they're happy with the benefits, they're happy with the instructional supports when it comes to the teachers. And so the reason that really I see people leaving is because they move out of the state.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Oh,
So first you stole my question. Thank you for coming. I feel like it has been a few years since we've had this update, and I really appreciate, this was a lot of work, and I appreciate all the information that's in here. A couple of years ago, I asked you if you were doing exit surveys between the buildings, and I was just kind of following up on that. Are we doing them? Have you heard? Are we doing them? Let's just start with that.
No, so that I believe that what you're asking is if somebody leaves one building to go to another,
Yes.
do we do an exit survey? No, I mean, I can backtrack and take a look at it. A lot of our transfers happen because of where a position is open and where we might need to like, we may need to adjust the number of sections that we have in one school, so it opens it in another. So I think I know the reason why they're going, because the job is somewhere else.
Sure.
But I'll definitely take a good look at that. And since I invited myself to come back again, maybe in October, I will add that.
Just like, is it like a professional goal? Like, hey, I've always wanted to be a principal of the high school, and I'm leaving I've applied, or I saw this opportunity as an interim kind of thing, or is it, I don't know, I'm beat at this level and I kind of need a new path. I need fresh blood. I need a fresh building. I'm looking to revitalize my career. Is it, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'll
Just,
work
you
on
know.
that so that I can report it back out to you.
Sure. Thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments? This was fantastic, and I look forward to seeing you again in October.
Thank you. So I don't have to come back to October?
I look forward to your next presentation in October. Words matter, yes, they do. Next is first read of the 2022-2023 FPS handbook. Dr. Taylor.
That sounds like a movie. Wait, thank you, Mr. Reed, I love this color. The policy subcommittee spent 2 full meetings focusing exclusively on the handbook, but some of the policies that you approved just prior to those conversations affected some of the changes here as well. So we've had some conversation around the pieces. The first item is there are no substantive changes planned for the forms packet. The biggest change is looking to move the process electronic. So we've looked at 2 different vendors, and I think we've settled on one. And I think, you know, in addition to the translation tools, one of the greatest things is that families year over year can just log in and update what's new and not sit down with that famous stapled packet at the beginning of the school year. Tomorrow's last day of school, and I'm already thinking about the packet. Okay. Item 2, we're taking out, and we talked about this when we updated and took out, actually, we deleted the COVID policy. So taking out that COVID response section, which is no longer applicable at the beginning of the handbook. Item 3 is language that we received from the wellness committee regarding food or food-free celebrations. So the wellness committee forwarded that to the policy subcommittee, and we've had some conversation about it and are presenting it here as it was prepared. Item 4, we have all gone through conversation here in this forum, and you've approved the responsible use policy actually back during the comprehensive policy review process in the spring of 20. See, more than just March 13th. Right. So we want to put the entire text of the policy in the handbook because there are implications within the text around student discipline, and we just want to be really clear and have it in the handbook in the context of the code of conduct and responses to that. So that's a significant portion of the packet, but I felt like if I didn't copy and paste it in, I didn't want anybody to go looking for it while we're discussing. The next is just making sure that anywhere we see the language around protection classes after the work that we've just done coming through May, then we make sure we align that in the handbook as well. So everyone that we've included is fully included. The next step around student discipline, there are a couple of bullets here. One is that the legal standard, we are returning to reevaluating that, and that's been great in collaboration with Mrs. Gans and looking at including full text in some places where we had otherwise linked out, so it's readily accessible to families and meeting that legal standard. of the full text of some of the laws, especially around 37H, 37H1/2, and 37H3/4, we were further advised through the tiered focus monitoring process and the Office of Student Services under the direction of Dr. Woodward to include that as well. So thank you for helping us meet the requirements of policy revision. We're following through the handbook revision for that process. We are also looking at pulling due process out of the code of conduct and making it its own part in our table of contents, the tab menu on the left, and really being clear and putting that information explicitly out there for families and staff to navigate to. We are advised through the tiered focus monitoring process and in alignment with the legal standard to remove the information around requiring negative drug tests or drug results, substance results for students who've been suspended and returning to school. It's non-compliant with the law. And then also following along with the compliance, the section regarding the discipline of students who are identified as receiving special education services or in the testing queue and receiving the coverage. There is the language specific to discipline. We were advised to take the language we have out and insert the new DESI language. Many of the same pieces are there, but it's all been updated and aligned with changes in the Mass General Laws regulations. So providing both the text we're deleting and the text that's going in. Updated language specific to bullying prevention. Again, file JICB, which is the bullying prevention policy you had just, I think, voted to approve at the last May meeting. So this is putting information and key definitions of commonly used terms in the handbook. And then the final item at the end is we want to include at the beginning of the handbook, both the text of the land acknowledgement, and we'd like to put in the graphic from the student created mural that we shared with you this evening. And then I saw when I moved back across the room was over here behind the wall. So that's the high level review of our conversation and our intentions around the handbook with feedback both from the tiered focus monitoring process, the legal guidance and conversation this stands, and what principals have pointed out for us to help them clarify for their work.
Great, thank you. That's a lot. Any questions or comments, initial questions or comments?
So for those of you that don't know, I sit on policy and I've been pretty vocal about the parties and celebrations to not remove the food portion from it. I was unable to be at the 2 policy meetings ago because my daughter had a band concert and I thought it was pretty important that I be mom. So I know that I will die on this hill. I definitely do not agree with the wellness committee, and as a professional nurse, I struggle with that, you know, but it's okay to respectfully disagree, of which I do. There are a lot of students in our district that this is the only celebration that they get, whether it be for a birthday or a holiday or a celebration of some sort, because they are unable to afford it at home or for a variety of reasons, or they don't have a home or what have you. I need you to know that I am never going to be okay with removing food celebrations from school. And I just want to say that out loud. I just feel like everyone should hear that yes, this came from policy, and yes, I sit on policy, but I will die on this. Sorry.
Andrea, I'll add to that. And I think coming out of policy, we've been having this discussion, and the thought process around it, especially since it came from the wellness committee, is that it needs to go to all of us, and that we shouldn't hold it up there so that everybody can have their say. And I wish that Tim Adams was still here, because he could probably speak to this. But being on the wellness subcommittee, And this has been many years in the making. We have talked this through with many, many stakeholders, principals, teachers, food service, community members, in particular the school nurses, who are very supportive of these protocols. They regularly bring up issues with allergies, testing for diabetics, food sensitivities, children with dental issues. We've heard from custodial staff about cleanliness of classrooms and issues surrounding that. And I think additionally, it's important to remember that the last 2 years have already been food-free due to changes with COVID protocols. So we've already adapted to this change. It's not going to actually be as big as it might seem. Birthdays and holidays were still celebrated in very unique ways because our teachers are very creative and they've come up with ways to do that. I think that the last issue that we have to remember is equity, and it's exactly what Melissa was expressing that concern. And maybe there are those situations that have happened in the past, but overall, the feedback that we were getting as a committee, like I said, there have been so many people on this over the years, is that the students who are least likely to have a celebration at home are also very unlikely to have a parent or guardian bring something to school to celebrate there anyway, and the disparity only becomes more obvious. So that was kind of a lot of the thought process that went into it. Health, equity, cleanliness, and again, with a new director of health and wellness, took this initiative and bubbled back up to the surface because it had certainly gone to a lower priority level during COVID, and it was brought back again. It's important.
Another facet of this discussion is that there are celebrations, and I want to emphasize the word that Andrea said, innovated by the teachers. So instead of having cupcakes, the kids will get pencils with their names on them, or things like that. So there is a possibility of celebration, and I think too about what about the kid who can't have cake and there's cake in the room. There is a way to celebrate without the food, and I think to be equal to everybody, we should keep it without food. It's not everybody can eat it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not in the policy committee, but I'm just reading this now, and I just want to make a couple of points. My children at North Falmouth, we just had the 4th grade slideshow, and there was a table 4 times the size of this table, full of donuts and muffins, etc. And at field day, they gave out ice pops to all the kids. So would this delete all that stuff as well? Okay. And then my other thing, as far as allergies, my daughter is gluten-free, and every parent and teacher has always been good with having something different. During COVID, we were sending in pre-packaged food with all the nutritional stuff. And then one last thing I will say is with the equity and some families not being able to afford to have a birthday party for themselves. A lot of the times people don't go to other birthday parties because they don't have the money to buy someone a gift. And this would be their only celebration with their friends, would be this kind of activity. So, and I'm just reading this for the first time, but I don't totally understand the stuff. And then my last thing is the stakeholders point. All the stakeholders that you mentioned, none of them were the kids, and the kids love this kind of stuff. Last night we just had an end of year party for my 2nd grade classroom at North Falmouth, and we brought pizza. There was gluten-free pizza, ice pops, all that stuff. We did it after school, so we wouldn't have to, trouble the teachers and nurses and all that stuff. But I just think that, that's all I have.
I'll just add that the after-school things were not being wrapped into this. It was only during school, and it wasn't eliminating the actual celebration. So birthdays will be celebrated,
And
and
junk food.
they've done various things where it might be a special thing with the principal, or some schools are doing books, and so all of those pieces are still in place. It's just not having the food that's causing, you know, the nurses to have some real concerns.
I just have one more question. On field day, when the kids have ice pops or whatever they have, is that off the table as well?
Lori, is there any, does this go through food services? I'm not aware.
So I'm not sure where the ice pops came from, but referring to, we do have those through the cafeteria if they meet the FDA guidelines, and that's fine. That policy though was referring to the school day, right? Not after school, not any of the extracurricular activities, not the football games, you know, the concession stands, but this was during the school day.
Perhaps maybe we could have some sort of amendment to, I hear everything, all the stakeholders, and I hear it, and as somebody who is extraordinarily involved in my children's elementary school experience, I feel sad that things like the Thanksgiving celebration is going to be taken away, because there's curriculum surrounding that. There's it's about coming together. I think of things like that, and maybe we can have some sort of you know, protection surrounding the elementary level. I don't know.
So curriculum related is still in. That's the second sentence.
Okay, great.
So that, we don't lose that.
That's great.
Second sentence, second paragraph.
Excellent.
Any other comments or initial questions? If people have questions along the way, because a lot of people spoke on this, and maybe to whom should we direct them? Sonia?
Policy subcommittee is scheduled to meet on the evening of Monday, July 11th.
Yeah.
Right.
Or me, since I opened my mouth, if you want to say. I'm always opening my mouth, but if you want to have questions, send them to me.
Okay, and then we're gonna bring it back at our July
Right.
meeting for a vote.
We're gonna hash it over before the next public meeting. In policy, or you can listen in on policy meetings.
I have a.
Leah, go ahead. I apologize.
Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. My question is just, I know we've eliminated the COVID-19 response to COVID-19. And, you know, being someone who has COVID right now, I'm wondering what will be included in the handbooks around COVID.
It defers back to the current health service information that's in the handbook, and how we treat any illness and symptoms. I'm looking at Dr. Woodward, because I also know it implicates nursing and health service, but that would be where it would return.
So will there be the COVID protocol in that?
No, I believe we move away from that, right, even within the. I apologize, I couldn't see what you said.
No, I was just saying there are no COVID protocols
Right.
moving forward.
But there is the sentence that if the DESE gives a protocol, that we will follow it. So it isn't eliminated.
So I just have a follow up to that, because isn't there still the protocol that people have to stay out for 5 days? Come back on the 6th day?
Right, well, so right now through the end of the school year, so as of tomorrow, that policy does not move forward during the summer or next year at this time, but there could be, to Terry's point, any changes, and we'll abide by, you know, the guidance that's, you know, that'll get passed down to us, but right now that all ends tomorrow.
It all ends during the summer programs? They wouldn't follow the protocol?
That's not my understanding.
We can see clarification.
Yeah, but it's not my understanding that moves forward, but we will get clarification.
Yeah, I think because I'm I'm following the DESI protocol for my summer program. I think, I just knowing how much COVID there is out there right now, it would make me feel very uncomfortable if we don't have protocol in place for the summer.
We'll look into it.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, so again, if you have any questions that come to you, please email either Sonia or Terry.
I'll
Email Terry, and policy is meeting on July 11th, and then we'll vote on this handbook at our July meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is presentation of superintendent's evaluation. So earlier today, I emailed the school committee the full summative evaluation. This evening, I am going to go through just the high-level goals and standards and the ratings for the superintendent. So just to recap what the superintendent's evaluation, the steps within the superintendent's evaluation. So it begins with a self-assessment that Dr. Dorr usually conducts in July or August. Make it bigger. Okay, sure. Oh, you know what? You're right. I'm doing the wrong version. Thank you, Andrea. One moment, please. Here we go. Thank you. We have a different version here. The evaluation process begins with the superintendent conducting a self-assessment with analysis and goal setting and plan development. Then the implementation of the plan, the mid-cycle goals review, and now here we are with the summative evaluation. So the process, each school committee member completes a summative evaluation related to the superintendent's goals using evidence from the school year. And examples of evidence include goal-related presentation to the school committee member observations, superintendent's goal update presentations. As you recall, she shared 2 with us this year. And then regarding the goals, the professional practice goals that we'll see on the next slides are set by the superintendent each year. And then the performance standards, again, that we'll see in the upcoming slides, are set by DESI. And once the evaluation subcommittee receives all completed individual summative evaluation, the subcommittee compiles overall ratings into a single summative evaluation document. So we take the scores, not scores, we take the majority rating, and that therefore is the rating that the superintendent receives. This year, there were 8 summative evaluations, and that's what we use to complete this form. Goal 1, professional practice goal. This goal this year was a focus on equity, inclusion, and diversity. Specifically to work with principals and other district leaders to carry out the established vision in common language and delve deeper into professional learning for all staff that challenges our beliefs, understandings, and practices in pursuit of equitable academic and social emotional outcomes for all students. Again, the aggregate score of this professional practice was met. Second goal related to student learning. Specifically, to implement district and school plans for re-engaging all students in full-time, in-person learning in safe and healthy school environments. Again, this rating is met. District improvement goal. Outreach and communication. After limited interactions during COVID-19, the 2020-2021 school year, to reestablish in-person opportunities for engagement with staff, students, and families, and to continue community engagement. Again, this rating is met. The first standard, performance rating standard, was instructional leadership. And within each of the standards, there are focus indicators. This standard has 6 focus indicators, which include curriculum, instruction, assessment, evaluation, data-informed decision-making, and student learning. Again, the overall rating is proficient. Standard 2, management and operations. This has 5 focus indicators, which include environment, human resources management and development, scheduling and management information systems, and fiscal systems. Again, the overall rating is proficient. Performance rating standard 3, family and community engagement. There are 4 focus indicators within this standard. They are engagement, sharing responsibility, communication, and family concerns. Overall rating is proficient. And performance rating standard 4, professional culture. 6 focus indicators in this standard: commitment to high standards, cultural proficiency, communication, and this communication is to staff members in the district, continuous learning, shared vision, and managing conflict. The overall rating is proficient. And the note below, the focus indicator for C, communication, was identified as needs improvement. So that's a quick run through of the high level evaluation. And again, you all have a copy of, in your email, of the summative evaluation with all the comments that were shared. So any questions?
Thank you for putting this together. It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. We don't always break it down like this, and I think it's important, and I like it.
thank you.
Thank you.
I'll take all of it. Thanks. Any other questions or comments? So again, we will vote on the summative evaluation in July. Okay. Let's do this thing. We're getting there. Okay, act on new subcommittees for 2022-2023. This is the blue sheet. As you'll see at the bottom, we have new subcommittees that were introduced during our last meeting. They are Health and Safety Committee, Learning Access Advisory Committee, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Belonging Advisory, the English Language Learner Parent Advisory Council Liaison, and to reinstitute the Calendar Subcommittee. So this item on the agenda is to approve the creation of these new subcommittees and the associated assignments that we'll talk about next. Terry.
I make a motion to approve the 4 new and 1 reinstitute subcommittees.
I'll second.
Great, and any questions or comments?
I would like to make a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
This is very important. Just kidding. Okay, no,
It's
a lot.
Okay, yeah, so any conversation will be specifically about the vote on those subcommittees. Andrea.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to get a good sense of this, because this is a lot of new ones. We don't usually add that many. So the first one is just to get a better sense of the Learning Access Advisory Committee. And you mentioned that, Lori, but for some reason I was thinking it was some relation to the Tech for Learning, but now it seems different. And if you just explain to me a little bit more about what that.
Right, I asked Dr. Tyler to lead this committee, the Learning Access Advisory Committee, and this year to really focus on our English learner community. We're growing quickly, and we've added many ELD teachers over the last couple of years, and so looking at that population, the communication with families, the learning access plans, just the supports that the students need. And, so basically, I mean, to set goals and to set action steps and benchmarks around really focused in on our English learners.
So in that case, would it be helpful if, the member who was the LPAC representative also sat on that? Would that have continuity or?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. That's, I don't know how it was decided. So I'll turn that over to you.
The way I assign these are based on the request of the person. So I think if we're going to speak of moving Leah also to this advisory, she certainly needs to be part of that.
Of course, yeah, but I know, was she aware that that was, I mean, I wasn't really I guess, fully aware of what that entailed. And then my other question would be around the calendar subcommittee. Because this is something I just want to make sure that we're cognizant of. Is that going to be then, because I'm feeling where it used to sit is up under subcommittee, not other assignments. And when you're a subcommittee of the school committee, you have different requirements with posting and all of that. And a workshop that I went to at MASC specifically, recommended not having a whole lot of other subcommittees of a school committee that don't relate to our very specific areas that kind of stay in our lane with budget, negotiation, policy, and evaluation. And I remember feeling very proud of our school committee that we did keep our subcommittees very specific to those areas. And I would just be, kind of thinking about why we might want to add the calendar subcommittee back in, what its role would be, and why it would be a subcommittee of the school committee.
Great questions. As you recall, the request to reinstitute the calendar subcommittee was it you or Leah? I don't remember who initiated the conversation.
It might have been me, it might have been Leah. I'm A-okay having an amendment and just having it be a plain committee or a task force or however we want to call it. I appreciate you bringing light to this. It's super important that we follow our 4 main subcommittees, and calendar really isn't one of the top 4. So I might have used the word subcommittee in I remember the conversation being kind of jovial, and yes, I would like to see calendar come back. But we don't have to call it that. I don't know what we call it.
And Leah, your hand is up. I'd like to bring you to this conversation.
Yeah, so we definitely were talking about the professional development days. I think that was where we really were looking at bringing the calendar subcommittee back together around that. So I think it warrants coming back together. I don't know where it exactly should be, but yeah, that's it for me.
And I have a question for those school committee members who've been here for a while. What was the conversation? How was the conversation centered when the calendar subcommittee sort of disbanded, for lack of a better term?
I think it was initiated because there was a discrepancy about what you called Columbus Day versus.
There was
Indigenous.
But why did it go away? Is my
Because
question.
because we
we
kind
thought-
of put it to rest, like we went through the calendar and, we took out things like Good Friday, even though we have the day off. And then I personally went back and looked at previous handbooks that I had for many years back and did research there, spoke with previous administrative assistants, people that were still in the district that had been in the district for many years, thinking about people like Donna Domingos. And it was kind of just, the secretary would type up the calendar, or it was part of the handbook. It wasn't, today we're very purposeful and we're very thoughtful as to how things were. Some years it was called Good Friday. Sometimes it was absorbed in April vacation. Sometimes April vacation was called one thing and it was called something else in another building. So we kind of went through and streamlined all the language surrounding. But I think that this time around, Leah brings up a good point of talking about professional development days. I think at the time we put every single possible religious holiday acknowledgement. So just revisiting that sort of thing.
Leah, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, so another another great thing that we did establish with the calendar subcommittee, and it was, I think, one of the purposes of us bringing that committee together, or that subcommittee together, was to do multiple years of the calendar, so we could help families be prepared for what the next year would be like. And I think that that was a really great success of that subcommittee coming together.
Yes, agreed.
Andrea.
I think the information that I kind of personally need to be able to vote for this, to add that one in, is like, what does it look like? Who's on this? What's the discussion? Is it a task force like we've had for various other projects where we want to discuss some of these issues? And so we bring in all different types of stakeholders. Or are we creating a subcommittee like we have for some other things that we have the sole decision-making over, right? We might get some external input, you know, from the,
But don't we have the sole decision to make the calendar? That's one of the things we do every year. We decide the calendar. So it is our purview.
I know, I'm not saying that it's not, I guess maybe I'm not explaining myself clearly, but like, I'm not really sure of the purpose and who would be on that, you know, some of these assignments, you know, we're just there as a representative to have some perspective in that. But if is it just, you know, like right now, we've got one person on it.
So part two
Right.
of that is Melissa is going to, there will be, when we hit the next item agenda, Melissa will be added to that if it passes. That was part two. So just try and take it one step at a time.
Okay.
Regarding the committees first, and then we'll talk about that.
Andrea, I have a quick question for you. When you went to the class that you just mentioned for MASC, did they offer you some sort of, you know, I know that you're not comfortable calling this a subcommittee. I'm not comfortable calling it a task force when, you know, we don't need community members telling us how we're gonna, not to say to shut them out, but like at some point, we are here to make decisions. Like people have elected us here to make decisions. We don't have to get community support on, you know, that sort of, this is just a decision that the school committee does. So did that class offer you perhaps calling this by another name? Not calling it a subcommittee, not calling it a task force, not calling it just a committee or an advisory or a.
Yeah, not really. The only other thing they said were that some things are ad hoc. They're there for a short amount of time for a specific purpose. For example, I could imagine this one might be some new things have come to light. There's been some real interest in where professional development days fall.
Sure.
So this year we will have an ad hoc calendars committee that will look at that issue comprehensively, but it's not going to be something that exists forever.
So I think that this would fall under that category, because we don't have to have it every single year. Especially, you know, like I said, or excuse me, like Leah had mentioned, we put the calendar out 2 years in advance now, or at least we try to. Maybe this is an every other year thing. Maybe this is, I don't know.
But you can very simply vote. I'm sorry, I took it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was gonna say, as far as forming an ad hoc committee in reference to or in response to things that were brought up, I believe part of the reason why this was brought up in the first place was because we were lamenting about the fact that our students are still in school on June 29th. 29th, come on. And maybe there was a way to look at it and keep that from happening in the future, and that also, I think, stems some of the discussion, correct me if I'm wrong, for those who brought it up, but about the fact that we used to have a calendar subcommittee and what happened to that, maybe we should.
And it is a phenomenally simple procedure.
It's such an easy thing.
It's a phenomenally simple procedure to vote it out if it's done for the year. You know, I don't think we should spend a lot of time what we're gonna call it or anything. Leave it as it is, do the work, and then if it's done at the end of the year, vote it out. Like we've done with other committees. Mike.
If I could, Terry, I need your help with this, but can I make a friendly amendment just to cross out subcommittee and replace it with recommendation and have it fall under other assignments?
No, I think if we're gonna, I think we should just, if it's going to exist, it should be a subcommittee. And we can evaluate, I appreciate that suggestion, evaluate it in another year. Because I'd be really hesitant to have subcommittees, advisories, liaison. I think we should really condense some of the.
I'm gonna call the question.
Yeah.
I hear you. Before we, I just want to move Leah in because this is her idea very quickly, and we will. Leah, last thoughts before we call the question.
Yeah, I just, my last thought about the calendar is just how important it is to have union and administration in that group. So like that we, as a school committee, we need to understand all of the components around professional development and things like that to be able to really look at those dates. So I think that, yeah, it can have 1 or 2 school committee members, but it really should be something that's going on within the district with administration and the union.
Thank you. I believe on the original to approve these new subcommittees and assignments, Bill, I think you made the motion. Who made? I thought we had a motion on the table. Terry, I apologize. Maybe second. I apologize. So we have a motion and a second. And Terry, would you like to repeat your motion, please?
I move that we add the 4 new and reinstitute.
Margaret, we're just, I do hear you. Thank you. Go ahead.
My original motion, I believe, was that we add the 4 new committees, subcommittees, and the reinstitute the calendar subcommittee.
Great, thank you. And Mike seconded. Leah, we're gonna do roll call because you are Zooming. So Leah Palmer,
Yes.
Mike Halen,
Yes.
Terry,
Medeiros, yes.
Bill Dorfner.
Yes.
And you're from that. Let's keep yes. Margaret.
Yes.
Susan. And now they come up with also a yes. Okay. So next is to act on school committee subcommittee assignments for 2022, 2023. And as briefly mentioned, Melissa is requesting to join the calendar subcommittee.
I would also like to join health and safety. If that's an option.
Okay, so let's see.
If there's too many values, that's fine. I can, I just.
Okay, is there a motion to act on school committee subcommittee assignments for 2022, 2023?
I would make a motion to approve the assignments with the amendments of Melissa Keefe being added to the Health and Safety Committee as well as the calendar second.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And questions or comments? Andrea?
So is there a requirement for a certain number of people on a subcommittee?
It's between 1 and 3.
So we can have one still have a quorum of that.
Yeah, which one specifically were you?
Well, so
looking
with
at?
this new calendar subcommittee, you need to have a quorum available to meet.
Correct. Correct. So we'll have Bill and Melissa. Yes, I hear what you're saying, that if one of you were not there, then the committee cannot meet. We have a motion on the table currently. Do you see any issues with?
I don't see any issues with 2 people getting together and figuring out a time to discuss it.
So there's a motion second. Any other questions or comments?
You know what? I'm gonna look into that quorum thing. I'm not sure there's a requirement for a quorum of a subcommittee. I don't, because I was on policy forever and there were many, many meetings when it was just me.
Not much time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe there's a legal rule, but I'll check into it or I'll ask Mary Anderson.
We had an occasion where there was only one of us and we called, at the time, Superintendent and we were advised that we had to have a quorum of our subcommittee. in order to take any votes or for any action to come out of our meeting.
See, we don't vote on anything, really. We bring it forth to the committee. We're just like the purveyors of information. We do the legwork, so I think we should get a legal answer for that.
That's fine. Mike, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. If it makes it easier and you have a two-person committee that needs a third person, I am more than willing to jump on anything in order to make that more feasible. But if you want to look into the legal thing, that's fine as well.
If I may, for example, the Health and Safety Committee, my understanding is that was an addition of a committee representative on what already exists.
Right,
There
or
already
it's
is a
being
Health and
formed,
Safety
yeah,
Committee.
yeah.
This is just an assignment of somebody from our school committee
Correct.
to the Health and Safety Committee that already exists in the district.
That is correct. We've had several. Just like with the Tech for Learning Committee, we established that as a district. I think we've only had one on that committee each year. And so that the Health and Safety Committee is a district-wide committee. I wanted to add it because I wanted to invite a school committee member to sit in on the district committee. I see the same thing for the Learning Access Advisory, the DEI and the advisory. The LPAC is already established, so it's just inviting someone onto that committee, much like I said, the Tech for Learning and the Wellness. So on those, you wouldn't need, right? So our question is only on the 4 subcommittees. Would you need to have a quorum? And my understanding is the same as Sonia, we do, but we can certainly clarify with our new legal counsel on that. But the others are just represent a board member representation on a district forum committee.
That's why, but calendar is now the 5th. That's why I'm just wondering.
Yes, I mean, if that's going to be like move up and be considered a subcommittee, then yes.
So I will research that, and Mike, I appreciate your offer to get on that, that's way to make that assignment. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the assignments listed on the blue sheet, and again, with the edit of adding Melissa Keith to Health and Safety, and also adding Melissa Keith to the Calendar Subcommittee. Yes, sorry, Leah.
Sorry, I put my hand up. I'm sorry to speak out of turn. Is it okay if I talk?
Go ahead, Leah, yes.
Okay, there's three of these subcommittees that I just feel there's going to be a lot of overlap. And so I feel like we're putting a lot of responsibility on our school committee members right now to join lots of different groups. So I just want to be cognizant of, I see that there's going to be overlap with the LPAC, the DEI and B advisory, and the Learning Access Advisory Committee. So I would like us to, I agree we can do all of this right now, but I would like us to look in the future of maybe efficiency with this because we're going to be talking about very similar things. So I just want to throw that out there.
Absolutely, I appreciate that feedback, and I agree, let's try this year and then reevaluate for next year as well. So we have a motion and a second, and it's going to be a roll call vote. Leah, we will start with you.
Yes.
Mike.
Halen, yes.
Karen Maderas, yes.
Dorfman, yes.
Melissa Keith, yes.
Susan, yes.
And Ally Kellogg was also a yes. So thank you for those assignments. Next is act on surplus mathematics books and texts. Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. Thank you. Thank you for that. So I know, right? That would be lots of great. Next is act on school committee meeting schedule for 2022-2023. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Mike Halen, second.
Second.
Bill Dorfner. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, checking with Leah. Okay, so a roll call vote to approve the school committee meeting schedule for 2022-2023. Leah.
Leah Palmer, yes.
Galen, yes.
Karen Medeiros, yes.
Dorothy, yes.
Amber Pearl, yes.
Let's keep yes.
Susie, yes.
Natalie Cantalopoulos, also a yes. Okay, so now, act on surplus mathematics books and texts.
Secretary?
So we just wanted an opportunity, we've been conducting an inventory and looking at both the newer instructional resources that we've added and some of the older ones that we've been tucking away in various cabinets and book rooms. So we have a new math department head who joined us this year, and this was one of the first tasks, was to go through that inventory process. And so these are the books that we have, many of them significantly older. We had two comprehensive standards revisions since they were published, so not aligned to the Massachusetts standards as they're presented now. So we are, of course, looking for people who want to take them, but at their age, we can't get any vendor buybacks or publisher buybacks. That was our first attempt because we're looking at new programming in our younger grades, but it was a no go. That one.
Can I make a motion to accept the recommendation? I'm sorry. I used some of these books in high school. I'm not even joking.
I just have a question. Some of the geometry and mathematics books, is that before the new math?
Yes.
So we could go back?
We're not aligned to the standards, it might cause us a different problem, but
I'm
if you
sorry.
would like one for nostalgic purposes.
I'm sorry, I second.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call, Leah.
Leah Palmer, yes.
Galen, yes.
Karen Medeiros, yes.
Dorothy, yes.
Amber Pearl, yes. Let's keep yes. And Natalie Cantalopoulos, also a yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Act on Cape Cod Foundation donation of, okay, it's probably $1,000, yes? There's missing a zero.
Oh, no, on this one.
Okay, it's
I don't know
fine.
what
So we're
happened.
just going to make sure the motion is
It's
$1,000.
$1,000.
Yeah. Is there a motion to,
Motion.
thank you, Mike, second? And Andrea, Lori, introduce this and tell us what it's for.
Yeah, so this $1,000 came from No Place for Hate to support the Carol Boston Weatherford author talks that Mr. Bushy just spoke earlier. So they put that toward the cost of having.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments? Seeing none, roll call vote. Leah.
Leah Palmer, yes, with gratitude. Thank you.
Michael Galen, yes.
Karen Medeiros, yes.
Bill Dorfman, yes.
Amber Pearl, yes.
Let's keep yes. Thank you so much.
Margaret, Susie, yes.
And Natalie Cantalopoulos also yes. Yes, thank you very much to the Cape Cod Foundation and No Place for Hate. Next, update by the superintendent.
Yes, so I have two items, both were requested at the last meeting. So Andrea had asked about the equity audit. We are, I believe that I had indicated before that I wanted the DEI and belonging director on board so they could be a part of the interview process. So in July, we will be interviewing 3 companies, Mass Insight, which I spoke about previously, Boston College, and the Education Resources Consortium are the 3 that we'll be interviewing in July, and I'll give an update after that. Lori? Yeah.
When you initially were talking about companies, there was a disparities in prices. Are these ones you narrowed down closer, or?
So
I'm not questioning you.
Yeah, that's right. No. Mass Insight, I believe, is still going to be the most expensive in the interview. We have not received a quote from the other 2 at this point. But if I had to guess, Mass Insight was the most expensive of all the ones that I researched. Researched before. All 3 are Massachusetts based. So the second update requested was, Melissa, you had asked for the enrollment. So if you bear with me, I'm going to bring up the just a presentation so it's now it's in your packet, but I'll bring it up for the folks that. Here, or, you know. It's not your packet?
No. That's why I did the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, I apologize for that. This will be in the back, but we'll do it here. Okay, so the enrollment for school. So I normally do this on October 1 data. So I'm just gonna also point out some differences from October 1 to now. There are a few changes. There have been a few schools that we had students withdraw. We've had a few schools where there's been students added. The total in October for the October 1 data was 3,090. So now we have 3,092, but it is not just the addition of 2 students. There has been some students leave and some additional students come across the district. And please ask any questions. So I think that this slide on the enrollment is very telling. As you know, the kindergarten enrollment last year was 250. We do not or don't recall a cohort of kindergarten students that has been that high for many years. So this year is 189. And when I look at the other cohorts, this is one of the lowest that we've experienced over the time, which goes along with the discussions Cape-wide that the kindergarten numbers are declining. Student enrollment overall, but the entering kindergarten. So we're certainly seeing it. We still have the summer, we still have time, but usually by the end of June, the majority of the students have registered. So there'll be a few come in over the summer, but I don't expect that that's going to be much higher.
Just to
Hope I'm wrong.
pause you there, roughly how much lower is this from last year? Like, ballpark?
So from 250.
Oh, 250,
Yeah,
okay, sorry, I was
yeah.
taking notes, I didn't hear
Yeah,
that.
I'm sorry.
From before the bump, like
Yeah.
that, since that was
Yeah.
extraordinary.
Yeah, so grade, yeah, so our other bubble years, grade 4, grade 7. And we've had, though, still not near 250, but certainly they were the other 2 higher years. I don't have the exact.
225.
225 was pre-bubble.
Yeah, kind of typical forward.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you, Patrick.
Real quick, could you just go back to that last slide for just a second? Thank you. I just want to give the elementary schools where I was trying to write down. Thank you.
And certainly get these slides to you.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that. Thank you.
Other questions?
Do you have any more on this? or is
No,
this-
that was it. Just
Okay, so I would love to look at evening out the numbers in the elementary schools if it's all possible. I know that some people send their children to the elementary school that they live closest to. I know that we do have some school choice with parents that work at a different elementary school or parents that work closer to that elementary school. But then we have other students that just want to go to a certain elementary school because whatever. I just is there a way to try to even it out? Is that to share the load?
so just the capacity at Mullen Hall is the largest school, and then North Falmouth next. T-Ticket and East Falmouth being pretty similar as far as the capacity. So that would have to be taken into consideration, just the number of students that we could actually take in.
So for example, T-Ticket Elementary School is at capacity at 254.
No, not at capacity, I'm just saying if there's a difference, so all 4 schools don't have the same capacity, that's all.
Right.
Yeah, so, when we talked about balance, I just wanted to make sure that we couldn't have an even number in all 4 schools, but we could balance the numbers because yes, there is room to take students in at T-Ticket and East, where we are, North is the most stressed with space.
Yes.
And Mullen Hall, with some declining numbers there, they're in a breathable
Sure.
space right now.
I think
that
was my question, so I appreciate that.
Because they've been pretty stressed over time as well.
Sure.
So a more of a capacity balance between the 4 elementary schools still would require us to do redistricting. And it would be a process to do that, even if we were just looking at the elementary schools.
Is that option on the table?
That comes from the school committee. If that's something you want to do, you charge me with it and if I will set forth and go through the process, which usually, I will tell you, anytime I've done this, it's a year to year and a half process because there's a lot of community involvement work that needs to be done. I've seen it done successfully when you start redistricting the neighborhoods, that it starts with the kindergarten students. So, if I'm a second grade Dory, I'm gonna stay a Dory.
Correct,
Right.
no.
Right, so then that also takes a while for that to kind of catch up when you start, and family members, right? That's.
Sure, of course, yeah, no, I get that there are circumstances.
Yeah.
I just,
So it takes some time. It's not it's not an easy fix. So if the school committee's gonna charge me with this now, it's not gonna start next year. It does take time.
Yeah, but to Melissa's point, I think it would be helpful to see a comparison of the numbers and capacity. Yeah, so where we are with each.
Can I just weigh in on
So is that,
There's legal and transportation recommendations. So a year and a half to make a decision, and then the implementation could take longer than that. It's
a
not,
process.
it's a lift.
yeah,
It's a
Yeah.
big lift.
yeah, but I think that would be helpful so we can actually have a comparison to the numbers.
Yeah,
Did I steal your
that
thunder?
was my question, yeah, because it's not necessarily about having the same number of students, but
Correct.
maybe being at the same percentage of capacity.
Yeah.
thank you.
As another school. We should have one school that might be, I know we don't, 50% capacity and another one bursting at the same.
Right, exactly. Any other one?
Can I ask a question, Patrick? If a student at North, for instance, or Mullen Hall, which is larger, wanted to go to East Falmouth with a T-ticket,
It's a super important question.
I'm sorry. So without transportation, the legal aspect, are they allowed to request to change elementary schools? And I think that's what your question was somewhat, or.
No, so I think it's more along the lines of the percentage of the building.
Okay.
And so I always use my family as an example on this one because I can hear the announcements from my kitchen when the windows are open, yet we're to East Falmouth and we're zoned to T-ticket.
Yeah.
So I've been on this hill since my kids were in pre-K. It's just, I feel like we can do better. But if it comes down to maybe before we task the superintendent or before I request that we task the superintendent to redistrict, maybe perhaps the next step is to check out the percentages of each building and are we being mindful? Is it just always a pass? Yes, you absolutely can go there. No questions asked, not because it used to really be like when I had to write my letters to the superintendent at the time, I had to ask the principal of the school that they hadn't started at yet. And then I had to request to this building and it had to be a valid reason. And, I feel like it was a valid reason. And they also, part of that is the caveat at the time was the district was not gonna provide transportation, thank you, which was fine because we walked. So again, I use my own family as an example, but if you had a family that the parent worked in that building, say they lived in East, but they went to North because the parent worked at North, great, or worked in North Falmouth or somewhere up that way, or was an easier lift for the family because childcare, grandparent, whatever, take your pick. I just want to look at the percentages and be mindful of it.
So all the process that she just explained is true. It
What was the
still is
can of
today.
worms?
It's not an automatic yes. There are reasons, and the appeal goes to the new building that you want to go to in collaboration with the current.
That answers my question, thank you.
And we also look at the classroom sizes, right? I mean, whether that's, even with school choice, we do not open a new classroom just because of the request going into that building. So we don't add a teacher because of school choice. We may have to add a teacher because of, people moving into that attendance area. But we don't do it for school choice. So there may be parents that don't get the requested building. We may be able to offer a different building in the district if they would like that.
And part two of the capacity slide, you could also identify which schools have the program. So for example, one school may only be at 40% capacity, but they have a real high needs population that maybe adds additional stressors to the staff members. That'd be helpful too.
So the capacity, I just want to say the capacity numbers we have were done many years ago. I don't even know when that was. And things change, the needs of the students change. So I just want to identify that just because North Falmouth says, the capacity is 400 does not mean we can fit 400 students. We have more reading teachers, we have more related service providers, we have more special education teachers, it may have a program, that program grows or, so
Yeah,
I just,
we need to work
I mean,
on
I'll talk about that when we talk about the capacity. Because for 2 of our buildings, still have teachers in the hallway, and I know we're not at the capacity numbers that it calls for, and we have teachers in the hallways teaching. So I just, so it's, we'll definitely look through and talk to that, but it's not as simple as saying,
Sure.
this school has this many, and we can fit that many more students into it.
Any
Or
other,
into the book. Sorry.
any other questions or comments about Dr. Doerr's slides? Okay, thank you for that. Next, routine business, approved minutes of May 24th, 2022. Is there a motion? Andrea makes the motion. Is there a second? Margaret seconds. Any edits or comments to the meeting minutes? Seeing none, roll call vote. Leah, you want to? Leah, roll call vote on the meeting minutes. That's why she's not responding. She's not there anymore. Okay, so.
My feeling,
Mike-
yes.
Jeremy Darroch, yes.
Yes.
Andrew Thorold, yes.
Let's keep yes.
And then we can up us also a yes. Committee member reports. Any committee member reports? None. Sorry, did your hand go up?
No, you're good.
Okay, request for information. Terry.
Maybe in August or something, could we get a presentation about restorative justice? Because there's a lot of confusion about, is it in effect this year or is it 3 to 5 years? We don't know a lot about it. I mean, I think we only had one presentation on it. So.
And also a request for follow-up on the safety coordinator and monitors. I think that was the first we've heard, and I'm sure we would like to hear a little bit more. That could be September. But yeah, we'd like to hear some more about that. Anything else? Nothing. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Melissa and Mike seconds. We're here. So all in favor of adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good job. Thank you. We are adjourned.